Welcome, everyone, to another BOLDcast One Piece podcast discussion. This is a big one. It's for the Marineford saga. Was it the saga?
Oh, it was called the
Summit War.
Summit War, yeah.
Summit War Part 2, meaning from the start of IMPEL down to the post Marineford arc. And I think the episodes are like 422 to 516.
Yeah.
So we're doing everything from IMPEL down to the time skip.
And everyone who recommended that we split this saga and did a previous podcast. I just want to say again, I feel like it could have even been I feel like we
give you 5 out of 5 Jimbeis for that.
Yeah.
Goat rating on yourself. Because holy crap, if we had to do all that shit, we wouldn't be talking about none of that. We didn't even get any questions for IMPEL down.
Yeah.
Because people are so crazy about Marineford. So
and also it's just such an iconic point within the story, passing 500 episodes, that I think also a lot of people and a lot of the questions are very general of just the One Piece journey, because it's such a huge milestone. And also it's at the point in the story that a lot of things have happened, and characters have actually died, and there's going to be a lasting impact, and people got split up, and it's just crazy the point of the story that we're at.
Yeah. So we're really excited to get into it. We got a lot of comments for this one, more than probably any other podcast before. And if you're watching this on YouTube, we took a few days break, a week break, and we're going to start, or we have started at the time of we're recording now, doing side content. We got a list of side content from our moderators and our closer community members on Patreon. They made a list of all the cover stories, all the movies, all the filler arcs that we skipped or missed, and OVAs like the Monster Special, which we were going to react to, and Thriller Bark, but we didn't get to do. All those things, all the side content that we wanted to keep up with, because for those who don't know, when we reacted to Naruto, we had this thing where when we finish or throughout, when we start Shippuden, we'll do all the filler that we skipped, or we'll do it week by week, or we'll do the OVAs or do extra stuff, or then it became we'll do it once the series is over. Well, we don't really want to do that this time, because we still to this day, that was 5 years ago, we were saying that, and we still to this day haven't done all that stuff for Naruto. We want to be better about that stuff for One Piece. And we were going to take a long break, but then it's are people even going to want to be patrons if we're just doing side content? So by the time you're watching this, there should be a few movies. There should be a few Patreon exclusive things. We also posted the movie 6 Baron of Matsuri, directed by Mamoru Hosoda, that a lot of people said, because we love G8, that we would love that movie. We posted that for, normally a lot of these side content things will be available to our $10 tier. We posted the movie 6 reaction to our $2 tier. So if you want to go and get something right now, but don't want to commit to the full price of the Patreon, you can go check out Patreon and see the extra content that's been posted. You can check out movie 6 reaction for $2, as well as all the OPs that we missed as well, all the OP reactions, and a few other things here and there. Those are available to the $2 tier, and then some more will be available to the $10 tier. There should be more of those posted by the time you see this on YouTube. But yeah, just go check that out. And yeah, I guess we could get into the full-on discussion. And you could obviously go and get ahead on the Fishman Island, which we will be doing. If you're just seeing this, you haven't paid attention to any of our posts about it. We're doing the original Fishman Island run, not the remake. Some people want us to do that, but it seems like for first-time viewers, the original is probably the better way to go, it seems like. So yeah.
And we probably will then later go back and watch the remake, eventually as well, just to see what it's all about. But we think, for our first time watching, for the full experience, even though some things may be, not as good, maybe not as streamlined, but people do say that there's smaller important moments that get cut out in the the fast pace of the remake. So yeah, it is what it is, and if we could live through the ball ordeal, I think that we can live through anything else.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
So we got a lot of questions. I've picked out some of them so far. There, there's a lot to choose from. There's a lot that are kind of similar to each other. So if yours didn't get picked for this one, sorry. And hopefully, you can get picked for another one, or this and that. We try and give everyone a chance. And
what's the first question?
The first question is from someone else who says, I recall early on, maybe around Drum Island and Alabasta, you guys would talk a bit about the series living up to your expectation and discussing how you were waiting to see the world building and story writing by Oda that One Piece fans rave about, and how you were seeing glimpses of it at times, like with the Drum Island ending. Has One Piece at least started living up to the hype and expectations you had going in, and that was set by fans? I feel like this is kind of a good question to start it out on, because I feel like this arc is, I think, what a lot of people, the whole thing obviously, is beloved by everyone, but I feel like in this arc I can see like all of the developments, all of everything was kind of leading up to this point, like I feel like just something about it, like the pacing, the storytelling, the characters, everything felt so streamlined and just felt like it got kicked up like 10 notches even from like the start of this arc, like Sabaody, like that's when things were like ratcheting up, and we see the first kind of returning character of Hachi, and it just takes on like a whole different feeling, but still the same thing, just a more intense, I feel like, so I don't know, this arc was kind of blew me away.
Yeah, this saga, I actually agree. This saga is really good for like making me feel like the world's really alive. I feel like a lot of times in the past it felt like, oh, is this going to be, does it really feel alive, or is this a lot of setup for something that maybe Oda doesn't have a full grasp on what he's going to do yet, or kind of, we were kind of trying to be charitable because we knew that it had a big reputation for its world building and stuff like that. And I feel like this saga in particular, it's from Sabaody, like you said, it does a way better job of making everything feel more vast and alive. And we talked about it a little bit, but I wanted to avoid talking about it in great detail, but we talked a lot about the Grand Line and comparison in the New World, and how like we were in the East Blue and we spent such little time there, then, it's hyping up the Grand Line. It's like in the live action, but like in the show too, it's like, oh, we need to find a map of the Grand Line. Or no, that was the live action. But anyway, there's like all this stuff of like the Grand Line. That's where the real shit happens and stuff like that. And there was the line from Zeph saying that like some people call the Grand Line paradise or whatever. I wanted to avoid being too negative in the reactions because we felt kind of let down by the sort of the aura of the Grand Line, the vastness of it. We go from the East Blue and then we're in the Grand Line, and it was supposed to be, or it felt like it was supposed to be, this uncharted, like Wild West, like crazy adventure of this, we could go anywhere, we could drift off and die, we could like go to all these islands, there's nothing really on. But like as the story develops, it becomes, and especially looking back now with the way that like Marineford and Enies Lobby and Impel Down and Mary Joy's, they're all in this one little area at the end of the Grand Line, and they all have like eternal poses and maps for all these fucking islands that seem to be like uncharted and crazy, but really it's just a bunch of highways that lead to this end bit. So we had this apprehension, but my point is, I'm still really excited for it, and I think that that's a big difference, despite like because they're mentioning how we felt like kind of earlier on in the series. Because of everything that we just went through in Marineford, I feel genuinely like excited, and I feel like I can comfortably put faith in where the series is going to take us there. And that's something that we didn't have, that I feel like I didn't have earlier on in the series. So that's kind of that's my whole point.
Yeah. This is kind of a similar question, but I'm going to use it to kind of tag along on this train of thought. Ty asked, what has impressed you most about Oda in these last arcs? How do you feel he has progressed as a writer from the start till now? And I feel like what you're saying there of like, we talk so much, especially earlier on, specifically around Drum Island, actually, about how so many arcs we'll get like the first draft, and then we will get like a polished version of what he was trying to achieve, or like sort of a little bit of like a, it's hard to say like a redo, but just like a furthering of that same motif or the same idea. You get one thing, and then you get a very similar thing that is different in a lot of ways, but kind of encapsulates the same thing, but is more polished, is a little bit bigger, is a little bit better. So to me, seeing how Oda has progressed, how it's like you're watching someone write a novel series, but you're getting their first draft, and then also the real thing, and then the sequel first draft, and it's like getting the first draft is kind of getting better every time, to the point that then we didn't realize until a bit later on that Enies Lobby and Marineford is very similar. Like, I mean, it was kind of it was similar, but like to Water 7 and
Sabaudi?
Enies Lobby is similar to Marineford. Like,
yeah.
But Marineford, the way that it just kind of like swept you away. Sabaudi and Water 7, and then Enies Lobby and Marineford is kind of that. It's kind of the escalation of that, but it is so much bigger. It incorporates so many more things, and the first edition was already in its own right so impressive that like you can just see like he's just building off of what he learns, and that's where I think that he's such an impressive writer. He learns from maybe not mistakes, but things that he did in the past, and he's able to like more accurately execute the vision that I think he has in his mind, and he's able to incorporate more things. And that's why I think I'm so excited for the new world, even though we had this similar thing already with the Grand Line of like, okay, we're going to the Grand Line, but it feels like he already did that. So this time he's gonna be doing it, but better, like I feel like we're gonna get just a little bit more of that intensity and that like otherworldliness this time around.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that that's something that we've commented on, going back to like Drum Kingdom and all these older. I mean, even earlier than that, like for the entire show, for the entire Grand Line, like especially up until like Alabasta Skypiea. This was something we talked about a lot. How every arc was, we go somewhere. There's like a maiden to be saved and a pirate or like a sort of dictator to defeat. We defeat them, and then we either save the maiden or like whoever the focal character of this place is, and then they like join us for a bit, or they're like they become our friend or whatever. That was kind of like a formula that he had developed. And then he started to, after like Skypiea, he kind of started to experiment more and more. And each arc he experimented more and more, but it was like it's something that we always come back to because it's like a writing process thing. And what you brought up with like a novel in the first draft of a novel is that it's a consequence of the weekly manga format. Is that just like every author has like tendencies in them to write the same thing or similar things, and they have patterns that they fall into. Any writer in any medium. So when you put such a strict deadline and such a quick deadline on them every week, and like you need to keep churning it out, you need to keep churning out, there's not enough time to start to question that and sort of ruminate on that while writing your story. So it inevitably ends up following same patterns, and in a way that if he was a novel writer, or if he wrote manga in not a magazine format, but like you say he wrote like a book, like a full-on volume by volume, and was able to write it that way, then the story would be a lot more truncated. And it does make me wonder, like, was Enies Lobby and Marineford supposed to be like, if in an alternate universe where he was writing a novel version of One Piece where he could revise a whole book of it and like pass it through editors rather than chapter by chapter and like step by step, would those things be the same thing? And I would have, before this, I would have said for sure. And I think maybe in a different universe, who's to say, but with Marineford and we talked about this, I think in the last podcast, that like, going into Marineford with having been through Eni's lobby is a completely different experience than if they were, say, the same arc, like from a story arc, like if you're in English class with the rising action, climax, falling action, like the whole arc. If you were to sort of plot all of One Piece, or at least this part of the story out like that, Marineford and Eni's lobby kind of serve a similar purpose in that, like, you know, English class linear formatting. Just how Luffy's been like taking L after L after L. It's like the fact that they go through Eni's lobby, destroy it, and are like insanely powerful.
That's like their last victory.
Yeah, and then everything since then has been like either skating by the edge of your teeth and getting taken pity on by Kuma, or like, you know, because he has ulterior motives that don't align with the government. Yeah, anyway, that's the whole point. It's just that, like, it's cool, and as far as the writing, as far as Oda's development as a writer, yeah, you can tell that he has a way clearer grasp of what he wants to accomplish, and I especially in Marineford, I think it was the first arc where not that the ones leading up to it didn't felt this way just to some degree, but Marineford for me felt like the first arc where, as a viewer, as somebody who has been thinking about One Piece in this sort of like critical meta storytelling, story structure, kind of like what's the author thinking, authorial intent, like trying to study all those things as best as I can on a first watch. Marineford was the first arc for me where I felt like I didn't even really worry about that. Like I didn't.
You just got swept away by
the
story.
It felt like the story just worked without me having to do any work for it.
You didn't have to justify anything or be like, oh, if this, or oh, if that, or oh, I.
Because that's something.
This.
That's what I hate as an audience member. As no audience member should no audience member should have to do the author's job of justifying their story. Sometimes in One Piece, that's how it feels, but that's how a lot of shonen feel. That's how a lot of anime feel. That's how a lot of different series feel. There's a difference between the audience wanting to get immersed in the story and wanting to theorize and stuff like that, or like having to do the work of justifying why something, like, that's why power scaling is such a contentious thing in One Piece, for example, is because Oda will use the power scaling sort of storytelling techniques to put people into slots and to make things feel really impactful and build up hype in the future. But then once you get there, it's more attuned to what it ends up coming down to what he wants out of the story, where the story wants to go. I don't like having to do that work. And Marineford is the first arc where I feel like I didn't have to let it go all the time. Like I didn't have to be like, oh, well, whatever, you know, like it is what it is. It felt like everything that's set up that could have been like in that realm. It was like Ace choosing to go back and fight and take Akainu's bait. It's like a lot of people were like, oh, Ace is so dumb. And I can see that like if that aired today, the conversation online being like everybody explaining like, oh my God, it's so fucking dumb. How is Ace so stupid? This and that. I'm sure we probably have questions about that. But like, I could see myself being really critical of that. But it's a testament to Oda's craftsmanship that I didn't feel the need to feel that way. That Ace was just dumb. The fact that Oda wanted the story to go in that direction where Ace was going to die and be foolish and foolhardy and die despite everybody's sacrifice, despite Luffy's sacrifices. And the fact that it still wasn't an ass pull, it was something, it wasn't just like, oh, I need this character to die. He acted in character in a way that was set up previously. And that's the Oda that wrote that now is not like, if this arc happened around the time of Drum Kingdom or in like Alabasta time period, I feel like it would feel a lot more kind of like he just wanted Ace to die, similar to like how Pell lived. It's like you just wanted Pell to live, you know, type thing. You see what does any of that make sense? You could just see the progression of his craftsmanship, mm-hmm. and it's great.
And I honestly I appreciate waiting until this point to actually make really big irreversible moves like that. killing off Ace, killing off Whitebeard for the time that it was able to be executed like impeccably, like you were saying, if it had been done earlier, he might have had the ideas for a really long time, but he sat on them and he waited on them until he was ready and until the story was ready. And I think that also shows really good writing because it's a sign of restraint. If you're like, okay, I know I want Ace to die and I know I want Luffy to go through this development, should I just keep Luffy as a somewhat stagnant character with like no huge emotional moments for 500 episodes, or should I do that at like the 200 or 300 episode mark? Like it could be easy to be like, I'm feeling like I need to shake things up and I know I want to do this, so I'm going to do it now. But just waiting and drawing it out to the point that we doubted that they would ever go so far, and then just to knock Luffy down like 1,000 pegs, just like one after the other, and then cap it off with Ace's death. It's just, I feel like it was done very effectively and at the right point in the story. Because you could have, if you know that you want something to happen to a certain character, you can do that at any moment. But like waiting for the right moment where it fits is hugely important.
Where like the point where he is beaten down so much like that he loses everybody and he's alone and he's just scraping by, and you think that this is going to be the come up. You think that this is going to be like, because he's lost everything, because he's alone, because he like nearly died in Impel Down. It's like he's at his lowest point and now he's going to come back up. But the fact that he sets those expectations just how the story's going, and subverts them in a way that doesn't feel super like Game of Thronesy. That like it's not a Game of Thrones season 8. Like, oh, people expected this to happen, therefore we're just going to do this other thing. I don't think that's how Oda thinks, and it doesn't feel like that's how what he was thinking with Luffy constantly taking these L's and then losing Ace. But it does feel like it was a calculated move rather than his normal like good instincts as a storyteller. Like that's kind of how Oda has felt. It's like it feels constantly like he's a talented storyteller, like a more, I've used the word like savant before, where he like, not that he's just fumbling through it all the time, but because of the chapter by chapter nature of it, and you don't have time to think about things or plan things out like you would if you were writing a novel series. I think he owes a lot of his strength up to this point, or like especially earlier on, and the early popularity, to the fact that he is just very in tune with story structure and forming things, because it's hard to like take the time to really formulate everything when you're pushed forward by this deadline all the time. But now it's like you can see that him killing Ace there was a very calculated move, and that shows his growth right there. Just that move alone, after all of the L's that he's taken, like how that fits into that whole arc that I was saying. It's definitely, it's different. It's a little bit more unique than the standard if you compare it to something like Obi-Wan and fucking Star Wars. It's not following this full on script. He made his own sort of alterations to it, and that in order to do that takes awareness and forethought. You can't just like stumble into. I mean, you could technically, but it doesn't seem like he did stumble into something like that. Next question.
Oh, here we go. N asked, people always complain about Oda not killing characters. However, his habit of not doing that made arcs like Impel Down and Marineford more interesting, since he can bring back these defeated characters. Do you think the trade-off is worth it? Bring back defeated characters. Such as, Mr. 3, Mr. 2, Crocodile, like all of these people that earlier on, were kind of
retired.
Whatever.
Yeah.
They retired. They were, dead. And then this is kind of like a second thing to kind of add on while we talk about this. Monkey D. Lucci says, Lindsay was annoyed by Mr. 3 in Little Garden, and Carson wasn't that into Bon Clay by the end of Alabasta. How did you both feel about these two characters now and their roles in the Summit War saga? I feel like this whole idea of, like we were talking about, like, you know, Oda not killing off characters, even villains, but now being able to bring them back, starting off with Hachi back in the first part. You know, he was kind of a likable villain from Arlong Park. So we get to see him. We see him in a new light, and it gives a new perspective on the Arlong pirates. And then, you know, having the rest of the crew gone, we need some people to come back. We got to bring in Buggy, who was kind of annoying, but like I didn't care too much about him either way. And then that one, you know, we saw him later on, and he's kind of funny and whatever. But, you know, Mr. 3 and Mr. 2 coming back and just making such, and even Crocodile making such a huge impact and coming in so clutch in moments was something that I would not have expected. And I feel like, you know, bringing back characters like that, it could have felt forced, or it could have felt like, you know, unwarranted to have these like randos from hundreds of episodes ago come back. But it felt so satisfying to see them. And it felt like, you know, even Mr. 3, who was just like so fucking dumb with his
annoying
candle bullshit, and you hate him, and he comes in so clutch multiple times, and he doesn't, like, through all of Impel Down, you know, him and Buggy are like, let's get the fuck out of here, bro, like, we don't want to help Luffy, you know, like, Bon Clay was like, Luffy is my ride or die, I will never abandon him, even if it costs me my life, but you know, but Mr. 3 and Buggy were like haters. They were just trying to leave. But they were so, like, something about like the two of them together, specifically their whole dynamic of Buggy getting hyped up by the prisoners, Mr. 3 being like, he's not doing anything, why is this happening? And like the confusion. I feel like to me, those three are what made that arc so enjoyable.
Impel Down, you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. It would not, like, Impel Down, it would not have been nearly what it was without them. Like, it would have been kind of dull, because like it had that kind of syndrome that I talked about at some point in Enies Lobby, where we go in and it's like really crazy, and we got Boa Hancock, and we meet her, and she's like helping Luffy, and then she like gets him in, and then it's like Oda set it up with like all these tiers, so that, and it would be like a cool thing for everyone to go in, or for like group to go in, but for Luffy himself to go in against Luffy, who doesn't really care about shit like that, like to just like, oh, the blue gory, and oh, the fucking, you know, like all these different challenges, they most of the time like were just kind of there. But like if everyone was there, it would have been fun to explore, kind of like Thriller Bark, how we're like going through and like, oh, this is the graveyard, and then we're at the castle, and there, you know, this or that. But like Oda set up Impel Down I thought that it was really cool as a setting, first of all, but like as a arc, like a story traversing through, it seemed to be set up with that same kind of thing he did with Enies Lobby, where he's like, okay, we have a goal, and then before that, I need to, like, you know, put some stuff in there, put some like obstacles and shit. So then he like, there's all these kind of things, and then once we get to the end, we're like, okay, now we got to go the other way and make our way out. And we were just kind of like, okay, maybe it'll be cool to see them like go out with everybody else. And then Oda just hits the fast forward button and then just like zooms us out, and it was way more satisfying than like going tier by tier. They kind of like burst through like the whole shit without really worrying about it. But like that whole traversal through it without Bon Clay and Mr. 3 and Buggy, it would have been like a crazy slog. Like it would have been, and I'm sure it would have been made fun by some other crazy characters, or maybe if Luffy went there with somebody else that didn't get zapped away or something, or Boa Hancock, maybe it would have been funny. But like, I feel like if it were anyone other than those characters, it would have gotten so much more dull. Like, because they were just so funny. They were so good. And then when they went to the Marineford, it was still incredible. Like, aside from the crazy shit that Mr. 3 pulled off with the executioners, like the huge like switcheroo that he pulled there, that was like just insane on its own. But even that aside, it was still worthwhile having them there just because they were funny and like doing their own shit. It was good. It was so great.
And the whole thing with Bon Clay's sacrifice, Bon
That
Clay,
was so
Bon Clay's sacrifice
awesome.
was so good, and it was in a way kind of a redo of his original sacrifice. He originally sacrificed himself, back in the day, I guess right after Alabasta or during that. But it's like, so he sacrificed himself, but like you weren't sold on it. It was like.
Well, it was just because his face was he literally took place of the king of Alabasta, and like with a crazy smirk on his face, like ordered the death of thousands of people. Like it was just kind of like, all right, so this is our hero, huh? This is our savior. But whatever, fuck it.
I think it's kind of like you can still hold that against him, but just the performance of like a the true power of friendship that this guy had going on, like him and Luffy, like for each other, just like bonded, and it was so believable. Like at first it's kind of funny of like, oh, my best friend.
He's like Toto from fucking Jujutsu.
Yes,
same
it's
shit.
exactly like
same
that.
energy.
If it's just like at first you're just kind of caught off guard by like, why do these guys like feel so strongly about each other that they like met like 2 times or like 1 time, and then we're like, oh yeah, we're chill, and then it was like, actually you're evil, and then it was like, oh no, you're chill again and you sacrificed yourself. But like the whole arc and like going down and finding Ivan and like having Bon Clay be there for that, and like just like there was just so many good moments with him that Buggy was really funny, and Buggy has become like one of my favorite side characters, but like I feel like having someone in his court helped Luffy, and like having someone that believed in him and was like doing anything to help him accomplish his goals and save Ace. He needed that support. He didn't have his crew. Buggy and Mr. 3 were kind of helping by accident. Ivan was helping, after he found out that it was Dragon's son, and it's like, oh, okay, now we're gonna help, and now we're gonna escape, and we're gonna help you, and this and that. But like, I don't know, when I think about it, I get like hyped up just based on like the whole like, yeah, like let's go for it, and like the way that he sacrificed himself in the end was just, it was so emotional and so sad, and just so good and so well done. Like I appreciate it so much. And yeah, Mr. 3 like coming in clutch, doing what like literally being inspired by Bon Clay and his sacrifice and his, sneaking in with those guys to open the gate. Him doing like the similar thing, risking his life. He could have just left. He could have totally left. And no one, never would have been bothered, but he got up on the platform with Ace to try and rescue him. It's like that's a bold move, and it shows a lot of growth from his character as well, from like helping, like not wanting to help at all, to like reluctantly helping, to like, okay, I'll help you because it's helping me, to like, now I'm just gonna help you because it's kind of the right thing to do, and I'm in too deep at this point that I'm in, like, I can pretend that I'm not in this, but I'm in it, and everyone is saving Ace, so like I need to do my part and save Ace, like it's very satisfying. And like even with Crocodile as well, it's like we see Crocodile and he's all, you're all like, oh, like, what's the deal?
I still don't know what to make of the whole Crocodile thing. Like, is there something underneath, or is it just, or like, what I forget the arc he had there, like it was sort of subtly, where he had like some against Whitebeard. Maybe Whitebeard gave him that scar or cut off his hand. Maybe was the theory. And, there's obviously the Croco mom, Croco dad theory. I still don't know if that's a fucking thing. It would be pretty crazy if like one of the first giant, huge pirate bosses Luffy ran into was, first of all, a warlord. Second of all, also his mom transformed by Ivan, So Luffy's grandfather is a vice admiral, one of the highest in the Navy. His dad is the greatest revolutionary enemy of the government, and then his mom would be the fucking one of the warlords and an enemy of Whitebeard. It's like, this is all getting a little bit too close, but I don't know. Anyway, what Crocodile was like, he didn't like Whitebeard. He wanted to go kill Whitebeard, and then I can't even remember exactly what happened, but he was like, what did he say? And then he gave up on that and was like, fuck it, I just want to save Luffy, or what the fuck did he say? I forget.
Yeah, now I feel bad that I feel like I
don't know. I'm interested in where that's gonna go, but I couldn't tell if that was something, like, with all the stuff that's being built up with Crocodile. It's like, ooh, is that something, or is that just mysterious stuff that he can tie on later to other shit? It's hard to say. We'll have to see where it goes.
Yeah, but it does. I guess it does give me, makes me interested in, like, where are we gonna see Crocodile next? Is he? Because the whole thing before it was just like, like, what are you even doing? You're like a pirate, but like,
well, didn't we see him and he was like going to the New World with Mr. One? Yeah.
But it's like, we see him before and he just set up shop on an island. He's a pirate that like settled on land and was like, I'm gonna build an empire on land, and then he got sent to jail, and then he like went through this fight. He ended up helping us, and then now he's setting off in a new direction. I guess it just makes me interested in, like, I don't know what he's gonna do next, but when we see him next,
And what does Mr. One have to do with that? Like, what Mr. One to me, like, he was a mercenary, wasn't he? He was like a really badass mercenary dude, but he seems very invested in whatever Crocodile's doing.
Yeah, it's interesting with the whole, like, kind of Baroque works, like, MLM pyramid scheme.
Yeah, Baroque works
setup, but I guess the whole thing, it seemed like Crocodile was like very impersonal with like everyone on his.
It seemed like that, but he doesn't seem that impersonal with Mr. One.
That's what I'm saying. So I'm wondering if that originally they weren't supposed to be that close, but then now that Crocodile is going to be more of a character later on, and then Mr. One was also a cool character, so then it's just like, we're gonna give them a little bit more depth. We're gonna give them a little bit more of a relationship, because that's more interesting going forward in the story. I
think that is what it comes down to. It's like, so are we gonna stay tied to Baroque works, which kind of, even at the time, not even just in hindsight with everything and how the world has expanded now, even at the time, Baroque works felt kind of like, there's a thing, I don't know if I can even explain this properly without it just sounding like I'm complaining, because it's not just something that One Piece does. It's something that like every shonen does if you pay attention, or a lot of different series, but I've noticed it mainly in shonen. And it's kind of like how I talked about the tiers in like Impel Down. It's like when in a shonen, it's like, okay, here's world building information, or here's this information before we actually encounter anything. I'm gonna lay down everything. There are 5 categories to this new system of something. There's the 1s, the 2s, the 3s, the 4s, and then the S's, or like a bunch of and it's just like laying out a bunch of different categories and then filling them up with a lot of expectations, and then the idea is we'll make our way through, and then we can have the hype of this explanation kind of like going through. And then this is the same with Impel Down. It's the same. It's like a million things in One Piece, but it's also like the way that think of how chakra natures were explained in Naruto. It's the same shit where, like, on paper it seems like it's gonna be really cool, but then everybody ends up countering fire with other fire. Like, somebody does a fire jutsu, they do a same size fire jutsu, or maybe a water jutsu, or a lightning attack, they'll do a lightning attack, or like, for a little bit it became a thing, but then as you go on, especially into Boruto, it just becomes basically nothing. Like, a lot of shonen do that, and that was kind of how Baroque works felt. So, like, at going forward, are we gonna stick to this like rigid kind, or not like that Baroque works is gonna continue to be a thing, but like it was I think all the Mr. One and all of them and all of Baroque works were kind of designed in that kind of a framework, and just tiers of enemies or tiers of obstacles in the way until we get to Crocodile. And Oda kind of has a thing where, okay, am I going to stick to this initial characterization of someone like Mr. One, where he's just this kind of like quiet, strong, silent type badass dude who just like is there for a reason? Or, are we going to take the next step? And yeah, like you said, give them more depth, something like that. And you can kind of see that. I think that that's kind of what's going on. It's just like Crocodile is more interesting if he has someone there to talk to. So why not have it be Mr. One, who's a really cool kind of like, I don't know if he's a fan favorite character, but like he has a cool ability, has a cool fruit. It's probably fun to draw him with all those arm knives and blades and shit.
And
why not him? Why
Yeah.
make it somebody else? Why just have it make this guy that we already have a context
Mm-hmm.
for, and then Crocodile can say vague shit in flashback or like meanwhile while Crocodile's doing this, he can say something and Mr. One can be there to hear it. I like it. I'm excited. I'm more excited for that. I'm more excited for this with all of that like meta shit about Baroque works and how it felt kind of flimsy. The whole like system of that, like who would even want to be a million or a billion? Why would you want that? Do you really think you're gonna get upgraded? Like who's that dumb? Like whatever. I can say I'm way more excited to say fuck all that. I like Mr. One and Crocodile than I am to be like, so are you admitting that the Baroque Works, MLM system was kind of thin to begin with? Fuck it. I'm excited. And that's kind of how that's how I'm feeling about a lot of Marine or like Sabaudi onward or like Thriller Bark onward to me. It's like all like there's you could get nitpicky or you could just say I want to get to the new world. This is fucking sick. That's where I'm at with One Piece and I'm enjoying it a lot more.
And I think that there's also some interesting things like with that, like, sort of a revamp on we're getting like a revamp on certain characters. And I just thought of this right now. It's like, okay, so at least personally, I know some people are like, oh, Moria, this, he had this like backstory and this and that. And like, yeah, I agree, it makes sense. But like, he as a villain for most of Thriller Bark, like I love Thriller Bark, but Moria himself was my least favorite part of Thriller Bark. I feel like he just wasn't that intriguing to me a lot of the time. But what I'm interested in is we get at the end, we get the whole thing of like Doflamingo goes to kill Moria.
Seemingly on the orders of the Five Elder Stars,
yes,
perhaps. Yeah.
But he is probably like 99% alive because, it's this whole thing of like Mihawk's like, I don't remember, this is probably false information. Then you're like, did he just not see that? Did he not this? And then Doflamingo admits that, he
couldn't get the killing blow.
He didn't get the killing blow, but he would have died anyway, so it's fine.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of thing that I'm
clear,
like,
yeah.
I don't like Moria. I was like, fucking, I hope Doflamingo just kills him off just so that I don't have to see him again because I think he's annoying. Other people can like him, that's fine. I don't like him. But now, after seeing how Crocodile was handled, after seeing how Mr. 2, Mr. 3, and Buggy were handled, I'm like, maybe Moria getting like removed and retired.
It's giving him it's
giving him a chance.
It's giving him a cause to change his character and what that means for the rest of the story.
And even if his character, there's a lot of things like how he was sad about like losing his crew, and that's why he has all these like zombie people and this and that. It's like, even if the change is just him leaning more into like kind of what his character was supposed to be about in the first place, that's still something. That's still like, it makes me excited to see him when he's inevitably brought back, because you're not gonna kill him off but not kill him off and make a big deal about the fact that he didn't fully
and then
die.
have him be the exact same.
Exactly. Yeah. You're gonna utilize, especially seeing, like we've talked about, Oda's quality of writing just getting better and better, and him being able to reincorporate things in a way that is incredibly satisfying and revamp characters in a way that is incredibly satisfying. It makes me excited for when we eventually see Moria again, And maybe it won't be that crazy, maybe it won't be whatever. But you can feel that he's cooking. There's a purpose there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's honestly better than because I was kind of excited for him to just holy shit, Oda's on the fucking warpath. He's gonna kill a third character. Like he hasn't killed anyone, and then he kills Whitebeard, Ace, and then just fuck it, throw in Moria as a dessert just because. But I think that like doing it to Ace and Whitebeard is like a story decision, and it's like a clear thing. I feel like if he were to just like Moria's dead, so fuck him. I feel like that would be it would feel kind of like if you've ever read anyone out there, if you've ever read like Marvel Comics or something like that, or DC Comics, where they're clearly or even earlier manga, like they're clearly writing by the numbers of the popularity polls and like what characters are more popular, and then an arc will end, and then they'll just be like, fuck it. To hype up this villain, we'll just kill off this fucking guy who's at the bottom of the polls every week just to make space for this new guy that we can introduce. Like I feel like if Moria, I like Moria being kept alive because of his power and having some cause to be on like a weird side with us in the future. Like, I like that more because it just feels in a way less corporate than killing him off to make way for like a new warlord that will be more badass, you know? Like, does that kind of make sense? Like, it feels in a way it feels more like One Piece. It feels more like Oda's style to keep Moria alive in that case, rather than just like, and it also, like I said, how he's the dessert. It's because he just killed them off that we're when Mori's about to be killed, we're like, what the fuck? Mori's just dead for no reason. Oh, okay, all right, we're hyping up there's some political shit going on, you know? And that's the kind of thing too. It's like how we talk about the Enies Lobby win, setting up all of the L's that Luffy takes. It's like just having seen Whitebeard and Ace, kind of like how some of the comments were saying, you know, the fact that we didn't see any deaths for the whole time makes Whitebeard and Ace's deaths more impactful. The fact that we just saw Whitebeard and Ace's deaths make us think that Moria is actually going to die. So, and then when he lives, it's still interesting and there's something going on there.
It's more surprising because previously, if there was like, Doflamingo's going to kill Moria, but Ace and Whitebeard hadn't just died, we'd be like, he's literally not. I'm not even concerned. But then the fact that him keeping someone alive is not only surprising, but like makes more sense for the plot and makes more sense for the future of the story, rather than previous times where it was like he would keep people alive or someone would die and you're like, they're probably not dead.
I want to see people do One Piece. I want to see one Pell edit of One Piece, where every time we flash back to Alabasta to see Vivi like thinking about, what's Luffy's tattoo? And there's fucking Pell there in the throne room to just wipe his ass off my screen. Like, how about one Pell? I want to see one Pell edit of One Piece. That's what I want. Anytime Pell shows up after, keep the scene. I don't care if you have to use AI. Do whatever you got to do to get that fucker out of my story. I hate him now because I hate Pell so much because he is so cool. He has one of his fruit, especially as a Zoan fruit earlier on in the series. Like, now we got Marco, who clearly has the best bird-like fruit, but like, brother, not just his fruit, he's got cool makeup. He's got the drip. He's the drippiest, coolest looking character. He has the best fucking design. Like, if you're talking about cool looking characters in One Piece, there's like Mihawk and Ace, especially early Ace, like when we first seen him with the black hat Ace, or an Alabasta Ace where he's all jacked. Who else? Smoker's kind of in that vein. I guess you could put Zoro in there. Who else? Who else are like the cool One Piece characters, like cool looking? You could say Doflamingo,
Lucci,
I guess.
I guess people think was pretty cool. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. In terms of like cool guy designs, Pell's design caps it off because it's not an easy design. He's not wearing a fucking cowboy hat. He doesn't look like Dracula. He looks like just him. He looks cool. His outfit is badass. So it pisses me off even more to see him every time because he's so cool that he should have died, and then his aura just draws me to him. He's genuinely, he might have my favorite design in the show. So like, I want to like that I'm seeing him in these Alabasta like cutaways, but I fucking hate it because he should have died. Anyway, we're past that. That was like literally 400 episodes ago or something. But I still think about it every day.
And with his cool design, that's even more reason that he should have died, because you wouldn't forget that he died. You'd be remembering every day that he died because you remember how fucking cool he was.
That's what I'm saying. Anyway, fuck Pell.
Okay, next question. And we kind of slightly got into this a little bit when we were talking, but then we like kind of went away from it again. So we're bringing it back to sort of the power scaling a little bit with Cornell Chase's question. So it's been over 500 episodes into the show, and as of now, we have 3 types of devil fruits: Haki/Mantra, the 6 powers, etc. How would you say that Oda has handled these power levels and escalation so far? Not just in terms of scale or sheer power, but more in general, such as Luffy not being a match for the Vice Admirals or Magellan, or Boa, Hancock, and Smoker, all of these different characters, even back to people like CP9 and Arlong Pirates.
I like all of it, but I have one complaint that I think is just a complaint. Like, I tried to, like, a lot of times I'll say, it's a complaint, but it's not that big of a deal. This is one thing where I genuinely feel like there's no reason for it to be like this, and it could just have easily been explained the way that would fit. Fucking the 6 powers should just be armament Haki applications. I thought, because they were built, like, we've been on this trail of like, is there like another power system? Is there another like thing going on here? I've kind of theorized that from early on. To me, it felt clear that, and I every time I mentioned it for episode after episode, whenever I would talk about the 6 powers and how they're in their relationship to potentially like all other stuff that's going on, everyone's like, no, hang on. That's a different thing. The 6 powers are a different thing. That to me, genuinely, I don't think I'm willing to hear arguments, right? I'm not going to be so rigid about it, but like that is a crystal clear case of like, why would you do that? Why? Actually, why? Because you could have just made, like, especially because Rayleigh was just explaining arm and Haki. Why is it only in your sword or in your weapon, like whatever you're using to fuck up devil fruit people? How I understood it up until this point where we have everything, we have all the answers, there's no reason to speculate, is that the 6 powers were an elementary school version of what would eventually become like Haki and the ultimate power system. So like you have shave, you have all these different things, and it would be like you harden your body, or you like make yourself light, and you move so fast you jump on the air. And we're learning all these things just after we get out of Skypiea with mantra and stuff like that, and it's like, oh, there's some kind of other shit going on here, it seems like. But for some reason, it's just not Haki. It's just moving your body, and it's like, what is unless the only thing that I can see before I let you go, the only thing that I can see where it's set up and not just a random, why wouldn't you, is like that the only thing I could see is that Haki isn't that Haki is a like divine, not physical thing, but like a spiritual, like God-given gift, like an actually spiritual thing. Like there's a higher power granting you this ability or something like that. Because then the 7 or the 6 powers wouldn't fit into that framework quite as much. It would just be physical training. You see what I'm saying? It's like, why? Yeah. But everything else, everything about devil fruits, even the mythical Zoans, I think is cool. Everything else to me, it's like, I don't have any complaints so far, especially now that we have all the answers with Haki and how everything is separated. The only thing that I feel like is genuinely just kind of a fuck up, or just kind of like a why, is that the 6 powers and Haki just have no relation at all. It's like, why would you even do it like that? Like, I don't get it. I genuinely, I don't get it.
I completely agree. And especially since the 6 powers was kind of the method of the Marines. And, we see Kobe and he's like doing shave. And then it's like, oh, we kind of start learning about Haki, and we're like, oh, okay, so Garp may have a devil fruit. He may not have a devil fruit. But, we see that he's super strong. He's like flinging cannonballs around. He's like doing all this crazy shit. We're like, oh, what if he doesn't have one and he just uses Haki? And that's kind of his thing. And he, he has Haki, he has the 6 powers. Those are the same thing. Those are like and especially since
there's mantra, and then was it observation Haki?
Yeah, was it called something?
Where you hear your voice, you hear the voice, yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like clairvoyance
So
or like observation hockey.
Yeah, so I completely agree that it's fine that they're not the same thing.
Yeah, like it's not a big deal, but like why?
Yeah,
Sorry.
I just feel like it is a little bit of a wasted opportunity to not just incorporate that in when there's already two sides to hockey. Because, if you could say there's Conqueror's hockey, which we know only certain people get that hockey.
Seemingly just people with the D.
Yeah.
Seemingly.
Well,
right?
Whitebeard had it. Whitebeard doesn't have the D.
Oh, that's true.
So non-D related, but only certain people get Conqueror's hockey. But Rayleigh specifically says that everyone has the ability to access these both types of hockey. You might feel more of an inclination towards one of them, and then you might be a specialist kind of in that direction. But everyone, even just like normal citizens, could do it if they trained. It's a trainable thing. And as we found, and similar to the 6 powers, that is also a trainable thing, seemingly. Anyone can do that.
Yeah, there was Itachi, or the little weasel dude, who
wasn't a master of it
Yeah,
yet.
he was like
learning.
a student, and he had like 4 or 5 out of 6 or some shit like that. Anyway, yeah, it's just, for me, it's just like, I don't get how that wasn't like tacked on, especially because they already did the same thing that we're saying, but with mantra. Like they already did that. They attached it to this arc specific, recontextualizing this arc specific word for this power that like a couple people had in a previous arc. You could have done the same thing for Water 7 Enies Lobby. And I felt it's extra weird because it feels like, what's the point of the 6 powers at all if it wasn't building up towards the hockey reveal or like the development of that? Like I thought that would, like, if it's not there for that, then it's just there for just to have another power system for no reason, just to give Luffy. I guess the only other thing is that Luffy did Gear 2 and he was able to copy those moves because he was pushing his body beyond its ability, So like, and that's how he fought Bluno, which was a fucking crazy fight, by the way.
I'm okay with them being separate. I do think that it could have been cool if they were the same thing, because what I really liked about, learning about the like mantra side of hockey was when Kobe was doing that. It's just like, the first time it was just like, he's just getting overwhelmed, he's having like a panic attack because he's like empathetic. We know he's like quite a sensitive guy.
I didn't get that was like voices.
Yeah.
Like I thought,
and then later on you're like, oh my god, is he like, what's going on? And then to find out that it is related to hockey. And what I really liked about it is that it reincorporated Skypiea in a very natural way, that it felt like, of course they wouldn't call it hockey because they don't know about hockey. They're not like in the same world as that. They call it mantra, which is like its separate thing. And, people in Skypiea might just have more of an inclination towards that style of hockey, since people just can have a natural inclination to one or the other. So it makes a lot of sense. I do think that it would have been cool to, we incorporated Skypiea, now we're incorporating the 6 powers and like expanding on it. But at the same time, if it is maybe more like what you're saying, that hockey is like, more of like a spirit, more of a will, and then 6 powers is more like a physically manipulating your body to an extreme level. I can see that those can be different things and can give a wide range of options. If you're having like, okay, you have your like supernatural, you have your devil fruit, you eat something and you gain a power. You have your will is utilized in order to like grant you more awareness or grant you more strength. And then you have your physical body is, being leveled up. So, in a way that kind of covers 3 things. I do agree that they could be the same thing, but when you put it like that, it's not too bad. But what I was going to say also is that, like, in terms of the power scaling, I really, really like how it leveled up to this point that now we get kind of the full picture. I feel like hockey was really well incorporated with, Shanks in the first episode. You can see it there with like the Sea King, and you're like, oh, was he just like so cool? Was he just so intimidating? What was going on? And then, we start to see other people do that. We have the mantra thing, and just the fact that it has now kind of all come together right before we're about to go in the new world, and we kind of know what everyone's working with, but they can still have different ways of combining them and elevating them and training them. I feel like it was really well done. I don't think that there was anything, other like that problem, but I don't think that there's anything that I'm just like, this is like bullshit that you're introducing this now, like I'm not like, oh, Kobe can suddenly like hear people, that's dumb, like I feel
it felt like we had hundreds of episodes to get an idea that there was something else out there. So it's not like it felt like out of, and it, we didn't know exactly what it was going to be 100%. We could only guess at it, but there was enough. Like I remember, particularly in the fight with the Gorgon sisters, when she started guessing his moves and like it zoomed in on her eyes or whatever, and he was like, "What? It's like she's guessing my moves or something like that." And like clearly something got turned on there. Like it wasn't just out of nowhere. If it was like, just random, like, oh, now people have powers. Like no, like it was. We've had the entire show to be theorizing about it. So, it's, and I think it turned out pretty fucking great. We'll have to see how it turns out when we actually get to the new world and see more people with it and all that type of thing. But yeah.
Yeah. The other thing that I really liked about that is that in that moment, it was like, oh, what's going on here? But it wasn't, you don't necessarily put it together with Mantra and then with Kobe, but then in context, it makes sense because we knew that it could have been Haki and a different part of Haki because we were told that everyone on that island was proficient in Haki because that like with their arrows and stuff, we knew that they were all like that was their thing. They were all extremely good at it. So it makes sense that they, some of them
have
might
a special version of it. Yeah.
That they're all proficient, especially like the leaders of this country that is reliant on Haki as, they don't all have devil fruits. Obviously the, 3 of them do, but most of them don't, but they're all extremely powerful because they are like practiced in utilizing Haki. It's just, I feel like it's really well set up in a way that when you look back on it, it all makes sense and everything seems good, and I feel like that's hard to do when you're so far into something and you're like gradually and slowly introducing new things. It could feel very abrupt, or it could feel like, okay, now you're just adding that because you're bored, but it doesn't feel like that. It seems like it was always intended for there to be multiple systems of power that different people can work into because, it's good that like Zoro can be a sword guy and there's not this pressure like, oh, he needs to get a devil fruit or he's going to get left behind, it just allows people.
And just, we've been thinking about the balancing of devil fruits for some time. Like the whole idea of, like, it was our big question before this arc that still wasn't answered. I mean, it kind of was with Sentamaru. I always forget. That he seemed to be fucking up Luffy, for example. Like it wasn't impossible to fuck up somebody with a devil fruit, but it was like, what are Logia they're just invincible, I guess. They're just fully fucking invincible because you turn into fire or you turn into smoke when people hit you, and that's it. It's there's just no answer for it. But if you can use armament Haki on your gun or on, because we've been talking about sea prism bullets, which they still should have. There's not like, it's never like there's a lack of sea prism stone. It seems like any time there needs to be sea prism stone, there's
an
some
entire gigantic cage.
But the fact that everybody can use Haki as well, maybe there's, I don't know. We realistically, I guess the only thing with this is that if we start seeing a bunch of captains and Marines, like if we're going forward in the new world and we're encountering Marines and every Marine now has Haki, it's like that would be kind of a dumb thing where it's like, I guess all the people who did Haki were just in the new world, even though the literal summit war, the war of the best or whatever they called it just happened here. And even though, everyone's been chasing after Mugiwara this whole time, even though we went to literal Eni's lobby, and I guess there's just there's nobody with Haki there, like that's the only hole that you could see with this,
I feel like also, the way that it could be is there's a time skip. So obviously we're going to be seeing, a lot of development from characters that we know. But, this could also be a time where we know that Kobe awakened Haki by being in this traumatic battle. Maybe there's others that have kind of awakened their Haki as well. And then,
maybe there'll be just like a way greater presence of Haki because of all the survivors, because the war was so, he's probably not the only one. There's probably a bunch of people.
So it's
that.
He awakened.
But thousands, like how many?
Yeah. We also don't exactly know, how great the Marine presence is going to be in the new world.
I think that it'll probably be less. I mean, I think we'll probably run into more pirates, which I'm excited for.
I feel like there's going to be a little bit more pirate versus pirate kind of thing, a little bit more Wild West with potential marine encroachment as we go. Because they need to like build up their ranks and stuff, and then we're such a threat that they're maybe going to be still coming after us. We know that Smoker wants to keep going after Luffy and stuff. So,
do you have a question about all of this that we can go into, or do you have a different question?
I did have a different question that I kind of had set up for next. It was from Matt, and he asked, "What did you think of these arcs, considering most of the main cast and crew was missing?" I feel like it's such a bold decision, especially since I think I saw it was multiple years of real time that this was going on. It's easy for us to be like, oh yeah, we watched this within it's not been that long since we've seen the crew, but once a week coming out on TV and you don't see 90% of the characters of the show that you it's a bold move no matter what. And but I feel like it was handled really well, and I feel like it was what was needed for this part of the story. I think having everyone else there, it wouldn't have been as streamlined. It would have been a little bit more distracted. Had to been finding things for them to do, especially when the part of the advantage and part of what I liked about this arc is that we skipped a lot of the fights. There's a lot of clashes, but they were 30 seconds worth of a clash, instead of what we saw in Enies Lobby, where it's okay, we have 3 to 4 episodes of a fight between two characters, and maybe it's cutting back between 2 of the Straw Hats fighting different people, but it's just do we need to go into it that much? And the thing is in this arc, I think that it was such a good decision to not have them there, because I think that it would have been bullshit if they all didn't die. To be completely honest, Luffy would have died if he hadn't had help and he hadn't had adrenaline pumped into him. Even no one else could have even hoped to live through all of the warlords, all of the the admirals, the admiral Aokiji, could have just got we've seen them. Akainu would have just killed fucking Chopper in 1 second. Zero mercy from these guys.
Or even worse, Oda would have had to nerf them because of the crew was there. That's a fate worse than death. I would rather all of the Straw Hats die if they were there. Say alternate universe, they didn't get shunted away, and they all show up and all the Straw Hats are there. I would have rather all of them died than what Oda would have had to do because of the nature of his storytelling style and everything, which would be to nerf Aokiji doesn't have the heart to kill them all for some reason. Kizaru's just so fucking dumb or is tied up in some other part of the battle. Mihawk just for some reason doesn't want to do anything. All these people, you would have had to come up with some fucking dog shit, bullshit, nerfy bullshit to not have any of them do anything because they're not strong enough. Or you would have had, because the only alternative to that would be killing all of them, and then Akainu wouldn't have been a tenth of as effective and everything that we like about him. Because we like Akainu because he's an effective villain, and he's you could say hateable, but Kizaru's hateable. Akainu is respectable because he knows what he wants, he does what he needs to do. And there's an ambiguity with how much he enjoys that, or how much he is ashamed by that, or how much he's hardened his heart for it. There's an interesting character there, but if he's not an effective villain, all that shit is meaningless, and it's just lip service. It would be then it would have to be Enies Lobby, and maybe that's kind of what was going through Oda's head as I'm thinking about this. Maybe that's why he couldn't have Enies Lobby be what Marineford ended up being. Is because if we're there to save Robin instead of saving Ace, everybody's there. We can't lose because losing means death. There's no way out. So we need to beat them and then escape because they're just going to kill us otherwise. So, and there can't be these crazy powerful people. But if it's just Luffy and all these other people who are arc specific or whatever, or there to die for the story like Whitebeard or Ace in a way, then the villains can actually be villainous. They can actually do crazy shit because the gloves can come off, because Luffy might not die, but he'll be emotionally scarred and he'll be fucked up from it. But if everybody is just emotionally scarred and nobody's actually scarred or irrevocably damaged by this, then it would be so limp dick and it wouldn't have worked. And again, that's just half of it. Because, yeah, we wouldn't have been able to spend the time either. So, you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Especially when we just saw the Straw Hats get beat by
one warlord.
By one, yeah.
And Admiral, I guess, together.
Yeah, by the Admiral. But it's like, the reason that they were able to escape from an Admiral was because they had the help of Kuma, who was confirmed, and maybe there's like, something else going on with this, but Kuma, as the Kuma that saved everyone by like bopping them away to different places, was not present at Marineford. So there was like, he wasn't saving us, that was a one-time thing of like, you guys would have died, and you would have died even more if Kuma hadn't secretly, been working with Dragon, it would have been hopeless. And here's kind of another question along this track. Whoopsie asked, if the Straw Hats turned up at Marineford, would you have been satisfied that, or do you like how it played out? I think that this is kind of an interesting question, because I think at the start we're like, when are they going to show up?
It felt
when
like
are they going to show up? It felt like we were waiting for them to show up. But I'm so glad that they didn't show up, because it would have been this. It would have been, it wouldn't have been what it was. And I think that what it was exactly what it needed to be. I think that I kind of missed them, but they didn't have a place in this story, which is why they're taking the 2-year training arcs. Because, Luffy admitted that Luffy was like one of the weakest people at Marineford. Like, he had Conqueror's Haki, which is huge, and he had the determination and the drive. But, if you put him in a 1v1 with most of these people, he probably not going to make it out alive. So, yeah, I felt like, at first I was like, oh, are they going to come back? And I ended up just being so glad that they didn't.
Same.
Mm-hmm. Another similar question to that was Sanji Joestar asked, like Iva, many times during the saga, you guys had hoped to see Dragon. Now that we know he's not related to Ace, what role do you think the story has in store for the Revolutionary Army? I feel like, because it's like, at first it's like, when is Dragon going to show up? And even before Shanks showed up at the end, we're like, is Dragon going to show up? Because, we knew that he wasn't Ace's dad, which is fine, but we're like, oh, he still might take this as an opportunity to show up. Much like Ivan was like, okay, I'm not breaking out until Dragon. Oh, this is Dragon's son. Well, maybe I should take the use of this opportunity to make a big move. Dragon could have seen this as an opportunity to make a big move, but he didn't. And now we know that Robin is going to like train up with the Revolutionary Army. So I feel like, and like the fact that we got to see Sabo back in the day, and like I feel like they're like ramping him up in the background, and we're gonna be seeing more of him. But I still don't think that it's gonna be his time to pull a move for like still a long time, like hundreds of episodes long of a time,
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
But
I'm excited. Like, I feel like before Dragon was just kind of like, oh, he's Revolutionary Dragon. Like, how's he he's Luffy's dad, but
Deus Ex Dragon who shows up when Luffy has no other way out. Like, and that's why I thought that he would show up at Marineford. I thought that, like, this was that's literally what was going through my head. It was like, the other time Dragon showed up, it was because he was against Smoker, and Smoker was gonna smoke him. He was fucking. There's no way for Luffy to beat him. He didn't know anything about hockey. He didn't know anything about fucking anything, and he still doesn't. But like, yeah, he still doesn't. And then he's gonna go to this fight with all of the most powerful motherfuckers in the world, and he's probably not gonna do very well. And if Ace dies, then Luffy needs to be rescued. And then I didn't think it was gonna be Shanks. I feel like it could have just as easily been Dragon. It's kind of what happened with Shanks is what I thought was going to happen with Dragon. I think, like, even when Shanks was pulling up, I was like, oh, it's a Dragon. And then it was Shanks, and it was crazy. But, yeah. So that's kind of what I was thinking. And, yeah, pretty much that's it.
Yeah, I have another extremely important question from Sanji Joestar as well. What even is Deathwing? Well, and I think the answer is obvious. It's
It's
just
the seventh technique.
Oh yeah, well, I was just gonna say it's the ultimate technique. Like, you know, it's the most.
It's like, you seen Potion Seller? That's the strongest potion.
Exactly. That's exactly the vibe that it gives off. It's undefeatable. It can be kind of applied only when necessary, but there doesn't seem to be a limit to it, but you can only use it at the right moment.
Better question. What even is Hellwink then? Is it which one's bigger? Hellwink's bigger, right?
I think Hellwink's bigger.
I don't know. They were used the same, right? Am I crazy?
Maybe it's just a style, like, you decide whether it's going to be, but like hell kind of seems worse than death.
See, this is another thing. I'm like, why isn't it just hockey? Like, why don't we just say it's hockey?
Maybe it is.
Maybe it is.
We don't know. Maybe it is. It would make sense if it was.
I guarantee. Honestly, this question. This is how, like. Well, maybe it doesn't actually mean anything. Sanji Joestar is a bro. He's actually a mod now. But this is the exact kind of thing why we're so strict with spoilers, because this question as a meme, maybe it's just for right now, but it's like the fact that we might still not know what Hellwink and Deathwink are 700 episodes later makes me think, oh, I'm kind of sad that we don't see Ivan very much going forward, or that it won't be explained unless it is. Be explained.
But I do.
It's kind of funny if it just isn't explained for no reason.
That's what I was gonna say. Is like sometimes in some shows or with some characters, I'm like, you have to say why you're doing that. Like, why can this person do that? But I feel like with just the nature of the character, I feel like it works to just have like a random like ridiculous, like he just winks and it like blasts everyone away.
I'm trying to think, like this is very reminiscent. All the fucking Bon Clay and Ivan both remind me of like JoJo characters. But I'm trying to think, is it a part 1 thing? There was a lot of shit like that in part 1 that was just like, what are you talking about? Like, what is this
suddenly
move?
I can do this ridiculous maneuver, zero explanation. It happens.
Yeah, it very much feels like a JoJo thing. It might be a JoJo reference in a way. I could see that, the way they're like all posing and kind of
just like the vibe to it is just very like you know, erratic.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Maybe it's a part 3. I can't fucking remember. But yeah, I think there was a bunch of shit like that in part 1. Like, nobody can dodge the lightning fucking whatever it is. And the guy's like, he like does a double kick on Dio's shoulders, and then Dio like grabs the things, and then he can't block, and the guy's like this, and he's like charging up his attack. No one can block this. And then Dio, I forget what he does, but he blocks it, or like freezes his arms, I think. And it's like, oh, you blocked, like you blocked the unblockable attacker. Shit like that, like Emerald Splash. Like, no one can defend against the Emerald Splash, and then Jotaro just fucks him up. It's that exact same energy, and it might even be influenced by that. But. And
I feel like that's another thing that kind of added a little bit of a lighter tone to the arc.
Ivan was like the most like I was when we first saw him, I was like, okay, like like I'm just like, okay. The 2000s shonen like quasi transphobia or like shit like that, like the cultural barrier of like the West, we think about things a certain way, and then in Asia they have like different definitions for things, so there's already that cultural barrier, and then it's also from 20 years ago or so, 15-20 years ago, and then also it's like you'll say like, so there's a bunch of things where we're just like, okay, I just want to move past this as fast as possible, because I don't want to have to be engaging with this weird shit in this like
The author, like obviously that was not the case for Oda, but there are situations in other anime or other manga where it's just like they're just inserting their weird like transphobic.
But they don't. It's not like they're making a point about it. They're just like they have this perspective about these type, and all of this. I don't even want to get into that, because we're watched by people from all over the world, and everybody's got their own opinions, and it's not like I don't want, like, I don't want that to get in the way of me enjoying One Piece, all of this whole conversation. So like, I don't, as a reviewer, it makes it difficult for us to like interact with these types of things, because it's like, it's not just about not pissing people off. It's like I said, it's like I'm here to watch One Piece. I'm not here to get in a super, toxic conversation about the nature of gender and like going into the history of fucking like all this type of shit. I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about One Piece. I want to talk about storytelling. This isn't the point. So then when Ivan shows up and it's that same shit, and we just had the thing of New Kama Island where it's like, it's a much more like, stereotypical kind of like not a commentary type thing. But then we just had that with Sanji and where he is, and then we get to Ivan, and I'm expecting the same thing. But no, Ivan's fucking awesome, and it's like it's still weird with him like changing people at will. But he can apparently some people have intuited that maybe he can tell who it feels like a different gender on the inside, and he brings that out of them, and it's almost like they're awakened now. Again, there's some things that are just like not worth like exploring too deeply. But the point is, Ivan is this type of a character, this like trans, you could say, character. It's a little bit different when you could just change back and forth, I think, like with the use of a power. It's an interesting, but it's like Ivan's this character, this archetype, but he is awesome and he's sick, and all the other people there are like the heroes and they're like badass and like fighting the fucking power and like all this type of thing. And it's like a way more nuanced portrayal of this type of person. And again, that's all true for that, like the meta thing and like the whole conversation around gender and transphobia and all that type of shit. But again, putting all that aside, they're just cool despite being these like caricatures, like they aren't just caricatures. It's kind of like on Chopper's Island, the fucking native people there, because there's been in the past, I think in Buggy's episode 8, it was 18 or something like that, like early on, Buggy just like goes to some sort of like Polynesian island and then is like, there's all these like kind of seemingly like racist caricatures of these island natives.
There's cannibal people.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, okay, that's weird as fuck for this story to, I guess I'll just have to, that's racist caricatures in my comfort story. Like that type of thing. So I was expecting that, and then Oda's like, oh no, they're actually scholars who are researching this, and I'm just like, oh my god, they have this crazy ancient library in this tree. Like, what the fuck? I don't know. It's just like Oda is starting to surprise me a lot more with the intentionality of the sort of stereotypes that he uses, and I welcome it, because it's a lot better than having to fight this kind of like, this is a little fucked up, like in a way that I don't think that the author is realizing how this is fucked up, and it's kind of uncomfortable for me to have to like react to this online in front of all these people and talk about it without being too critical of this thing that I don't think the viewers have even thought about or understand. And I'm not going to bring this up all the time because I don't want to piss them off for something that they don't even care about. So I'm just going to kind of skate past it. And then, wouldn't you know, it's actually, I'm get jump scared by the fact that it's actually like a sort of a subversion of that, and that there's actual thought being put into it, I don't know. I hope that kind of makes sense. But it's like, all that to say, Ivan is like one of my favorite characters now. And that was just with all that sort of like weirdness that I was just talking about, was not expecting that at all. And it was great. And I can't wait to see more of him. I want to see him constantly. He's funny as shit, the where he's like, or not, or whatever.
Yeah,
like,
it's super funny. Also, just super like the whole speech that I can't remember exactly what it was, but when he gave the speech to Bon Clay of just like like what miracles are. It's just like I'm not just magic. It's like I can give Luffy this thing to like help him, but he still has to do it. And it's like you have to like believe in something and make the miracle happen. And we talked a little bit how it's like similar to Blue Lock of like you luck is just based on you putting yourself in the best situation for something to potentially happen. And I thought that was really good. And yeah, I think Ivan is such a great character, and even if we don't see him for a while, just during this part of the story was so good. Like just so funny, but also serious, but also really heartfelt. Just such a it's similar to Bon Clay. It's just like such a great combination of like being able to be like super wacky, and also, you know, just in terms of you know, from the fact that it is like a visual story, it's drawn, it's art, you know, the big face, the like being able to totally change your appearance, being able to, you know, do different things, and like have this like very like stylized, like everyone's grabbing onto his hair, and it's like kind of crazy, but it just makes it fun and makes it seem like something that you're not expecting. And I think that's where One Piece is really good, when you're, you know, something, it's not just what's expected. It's like this guy makes his head gigantic, everyone grabs onto his hair, and then they get like blasted off with a fucking death wink. It's just like, you would never predict that happening, but it's iconic and it's amazing, you know? It's very good, and really, I feel like, you know, it's what kind of defines like part of the story. Maybe less into like later Marineford, but Impel Down for sure, you know, really set the tone. Mm-hmm. We have another excellent question from Gino, who asked, Satori or Akainu, who is the better villain? This is going to be an extremely hard question.
You know, observation haki was first used, well, maybe first, oh, maybe not, by fucking Satori. Isn't that insane?
You hate to see it.
You hate to see it more than anything else.
But this is an interesting, like this is obviously a joke question, but I feel like this is actually an interesting question in terms of...
No, it's not.
No.
No, it's not.
Hear me out. In terms of One Piece villains, because people are like, oh, I hate Akainu. I don't hate Akainu. I really like Akainu. I respect him as a villain. Satori, I fucking hate. I hate him as a villain. I hate him.
Yeah.
You know? That's, to me...
Because you don't respect him.
Because I don't respect him at all.
And because he was retconned mid-fight to have, like, strings or something.
It's just, like, to me, like, it's just, like, a villain that, like, I hate, and then a villain that I love, even though he's way more powerful of a villain and way more, like, evil, I guess. And then I feel like, you know, this may be a good time to start talking about Blackbeard, because Blackbeard, I hate, but I love him and respect him as a villain at the same time. So there's, like, the three levels of, like, a villain that I think is trash and I don't like at all. A villain that I think is so good that I can't hate him because I respect him too much. And then a villain that I think is a great villain and super interesting when compared to Luffy, because he's very similar to Luffy. But I hate him because he's doing such evil and, like, you know, messed up stuff.
Yeah. True.
Mm-hmm. Here's a good question about Marco from Mega Lazy Guy. After seeing that Marco introduced the mythical-based Zoan devil fruit, are there any mythical creatures that you would like/expect to see be devil fruits?
Dragons. I want to see at least one dragon.
If dragon has the well, he has like a storm, but like, what if he was like a storm dragon? You know?
Yeah, could be storm dragon. I mean, it like the fact that the fact that there's a Buddha fruit, I think, is way more of a indication of what's to come. Because there can, like, if we're getting into Buddhism, I mean, could there be a Jesus fruit? Probably not. There could be Shinto fruits. There's been a lot of Shinto stuff, especially with around Eneru. Like, yeah, there could be fucking, I mean, maybe he was a mythical Zoan, but just, I don't know. You know, maybe he had like a storm fruit. It was all about like Susanoo it was lightning specifically. It was like
it was like
Raijin.
I think it was like the like, you know, lightning thing. But, you know, yeah, it does bring into question. It's just like, from, you know, you can have the phoenix, which is, I guess, maybe in like multiple things, but I tend to associate it with like more like Western kind of like medieval style fantasy. Like, I don't know, it's like in Harry Potter kind of thing. Like, that kind of thing, but I don't know how much it's in.
I think it's in China. It's China. It's like it's one of the cardinal directions, the vermilion bird or something like that. It's like the 8, or am I right? Am I crazy on that?
I'm not sure.
Anyway, one of the other ones, there could be was there a Sun Wukong? There was like a Sun Wukong guy, but I don't think there was a Sun Wukong fruit.
Yeah,
but that's
one
of them. The Monkey King fruit. It could be
like,
shit
you know,
like that. That was more of a book.
If you expand it across, like, there's not really a limit to that, because you could have, like, obviously there's mermaids, but like maybe you have the mermaid fruit. There, we know that there was a human fruit, and that.
How would have? But if we talk about that, how could there be a fish fruit if devil fruit makes you drown?
Yeah.
That would be a curse. That's just a curse. That's like you can't swim, and you have a fruit that allows you to swim.
Yeah, I guess so.
I think that's why we haven't seen that, but you could technically, I guess.
All
the other zodiac, there's like because Zoan is like zodiac, right? So fucking all the other ones. The only one I'd be excited about is dragon. That's one of them.
Yeah, dragon would be cool. It's interesting because like I feel like a lot of mythological creatures are like you could have like the griffin fruit.
Yeah, you have the griffin fruit.
And then it's interesting, like for
the
something
basilisk fruit. I mean, we kind of have that in a way with Boa Hancock.
Yeah.
There's turning people to stone, but other powers have similar abilities.
I feel like I don't.
What other ones? Name a mythical creature that you like. Unicorn fruit. Have you seen
unicorn? We haven't seen that.
A Pegasus fruit.
A Pegasus fruit would be cool.
Wait, didn't we see that? In fucking in Skypiea. Wasn't there what didn't the
horse had wings, but did it eat a fruit, or was it just like
I
that
can't
'cause it's in the
remember.
sky?
I can't remember.
Yeah, the Pegasus. I feel like I'm drawing a blank on like mythical creatures that aren't just like
Kelpie fruit. The fucking I just want dragons, dude. I just want One Piece with dragons.
Yeah.
I want like Shenron Chinese dragons. I want like King Arthur fucking Game of Thrones dragons.
Yeah. I feel I feel like there's like a lot of stuff, but it just depends. Like, you want to keep them interesting. Like the Phoenix is cool because the Phoenix has like a specific ability about it.
Kraken fruit.
But then again, that's in the water. But
doesn't
I guess
have
you could
to
be like a land kraken. But yeah, I guess what I'm thinking is like there's a lot of things that could be interesting, but it's just like, okay, say you have like the griffin fruit. It's like that's cool, but it's similar to like other. You could just be a fucking horse that ate or I guess that whatever you could be whatever the bottom half of like a lion that ate
centaur. You talking about, or what are you talking about?
No, I was talking about like a griffin fruit, which is I think like a lion and a eagle, right?
Yeah.
So like you could just be a lion that ate an eagle fruit and like basically become that. But what makes the Phoenix cool is the Phoenix has like a magical property to it other than just like looking cool, which like how you're saying like the basilisk, which is kind of similar to boa. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's cool. I like that it's just opening it up even more. Like I like when devil fruit's just like objects can eat them. That's opening it up. That's expanding what it can be. Mythical ones, everything's on the table. Anything that you could think could be a devil fruit could be a devil fruit, So I don't have any, like dragons I think is like the biggest thing that I would like to see. But other than that,
because we've already seen, like I was going to say werewolf, but like that was already the dude at Annie's lobby. He got a wolf fruit or something like that. Or
well, that's
so he was kind of a werewolf already.
Like, if you get the werewolf fruit, you basically might have just gotten the wolf fruit, so it's a little bit redundant,
Yeah.
But also, there's a lot of things from different cultures that I don't like, mythologies that I don't know,
Yeah.
So that that's where more of that stuff might be drawn from.
Right. Like what though?
I'm saying
capybara, fucking the Wendigo fruit. Would he do that? I feel like he could do that. He's Oda's culturally aware enough to use like Western myths like that. He's already has the Shandians, which are kind of like natives, like or indigenous people to North America. You know what I'm saying?
I don't really know, but yeah, I like the addition of it. I feel like it's cool. I don't know where he's gonna go next with it, but yeah, I'm interested. Sean asked, from current events, which rookie looks the most interesting / strongest to you guys?
Kid or Law?
I like Kid. I like Law.
Not even close, I think.
What's her name? Bonnie?
Bonnie.
I feel like I'm interested in Bonnie.
Yes.
Specifically, I wouldn't be as interested in her, but
She
I'm
wasn't
interested in
crying
her
over
because
Ace.
she was crying, and then the fact that she is getting brought back to the other. She was in the new world. She was getting brought back, which means I'm assuming that we are going to enter the Grand Line at the same time as her or have some type of interaction with her on the
I
way
hope so.
in. I really hope so, because I feel like then we would get the context maybe for why she was crying if she had been closer to Ace than we thought, or whatever the situation is. But I feel like, if she's a character that is kind of taking that 2-year like level up period, not by her own choice, maybe because she got taken back. But, I feel like it's putting her in a similar position as us, setting up for some type of interaction that makes me interested to learn more about her. Whereas, like, we've got a bit of focus on Kid, which makes me interested in him. We've got a lot of focus on Law, which makes me interested in him. The rest of them, I'm kind of like, you're cool, but you're kind of doing your own thing.
That's the thing. I still feel like, speaking of mythical Zoans, Drake could have had a dragon fruit and it would have fit perfectly with his fucking name. So he's a dinosaur, kind of a ripoff. But he would be a close, just because of his whole vibe. I would be interested in him. But we kind of already got a little bit of him. I think, yeah, just Law and Kid. Kid seems like he's the most powerful, but Law, I feel like, because of the nature of his fruit, where he can like delay death, and like rearrange people and shit. Like that's a really powerful thing.
It's cool, and he also, he kind of reminds me a little bit, like, say Luffy is kind of being like the like reincarnation in a story sense, not literally, of someone like Gold Roger. Like, he has that same spirit, he has the same stuff. Law reminds me almost of someone like Shanks, of like really powerful but like very aware of the world in a way that, like, I'm gonna save Luffy because he has a part to play later on. Like, he's aware of like the grand scheme of his life and the world in general. Whereas someone like Kid is just kind of like, doing his own thing and like paving his own path. But like Law is like tuned in to the nature of things, or like fate almost, you could say, which I think to me makes him the most interesting, because in the similar way to like Shanks is interesting, where you're like, I still don't know Shanks' entire deal, but he's cool as fuck and he is like respected. People are aware of him. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's part of what makes Law cool, is just like his vibe, and I really like his crew. Like, some of the other people have cool crews. I really like Law's crew.
Yeah, you don't get Beppo on the other crews.
Exactly, Beppo, best bear.
Mm-hmm.
We have a question from Bernanzan, who asked, what are your thoughts on Sengoku?
I think it's Baranzan.
Baranzan. I think you're right.
Bernanzan?
What are your thoughts on Sengoku's resignation, and how do you think this will affect the Marines? In addition, what are your thoughts on his recommendation of Aokiji, and his personal philosophy of justice differs from the other admirals, Sengoku and Garp?
I think we talked about this in a decent enough detail in the reaction.
Mm-hmm.
But like, yeah, I feel like Aokiji's the only one that makes sense as far from Garp and Sengoku's perspective. I feel like Sengoku's retirement makes a lot of sense. 2 ways, because he like, they succeeded in killing Ace, but it wasn't done in the best way, and they seem to really care about that. And and then he's also getting like prevented from helping the people, so he wants to resign from this office so that he can go off on his own, potentially, and go and help the people that are getting destroyed by all these pirates, because that was what he was concerned with, is he wanted to like send people out to go help people, but they said no, and it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, you care more about rebuilding our facilities than you do about actually protecting the people. What are we even here for? So, and I'm sure he probably knew all of that, that they had that perspective originally, but there you go. So yeah, I feel like it makes, I don't really have a lot more to say about it that wasn't really said in the reaction. Just that, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I'm excited for seeing him in the capacity that we can going forward, but it also goes back to what I was talking about with his devil fruit, where I want to know more about like what the Buddha fruit even is, or what it does. but because of Sengoku's place in the story as not quite a villain, but as like a higher level antagonist, like, but has no reason to like fight against us morally. There's not really a way for us to learn about his devil fruit unless we're told about it. And I don't see in the future us getting focus drawn away from whatever we're actually doing so that we could get told about Sengoku's Buddha fruit. So he's in this weird kind of floaty place where I don't know what the story can even do with him. So the fact that he resigns and is going to be doing possibly different things, it creates more opportunity for him to be included in the story in some way going forward. But even then, I don't see him being a gigantic piece of the puzzle, like as far as Luffy the pirate's journey in the new world. You know, like maybe he'll show up in a climactic arc next time and have some shit. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, obviously, but yeah, I think it's better than him just being what he was. And that's, we'll just have to see where it goes. I don't really have a lot more to say about Sengoku at this point, other than his fruit is a mystery to me.
I think that it's really interesting, and I think that it works really well with him resigning because, it's with Whitebeard dead, it's like, okay, Roger and Whitebeard were the two biggest pirates of that era, of like these old Marines and these old pirates and stuff. So it makes a lot of sense for someone like Aokiji to be taking over now that he is like more equal with the people that are, up and coming, like Blackbeard, like Luffy. Like these are going to be his lifelong rivals.
Yeah, they're going to be his, like he's going to be this new Sengoku and Garp, and then Roger is like Luffy and Kid is Whitebeard or Law or whoever. Like these new guys. I mean, there's still Shanks, obviously, but still.
Yeah, it's just
the new generation.
It's a new generation. It's giving it a new perspective. Sengoku, in a way, with killing Whitebeard, kind of, and Ace, who was Blackbeard's son, kind of wrapped up all that.
Roger's son, not Blackbeard's son.
Oh, fuck's sake! Kind of cleaned up all that he set out to do. I imagine when he first took charge. So now he's like leaving other people like Blackbeard, like Ace. I'm sorry, fuck's sake, I'm messing everyone up. Like Blackbeard, like Luffy, like Law. These are all like new era pirates, and they're not really his concern. Well, they're still his concern, but it's not going to be his job to be in charge of going after them.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. This is kind of a.
Speaking of the mic.
This is kind of an interesting question from Arkham, who asked, "You've joked a lot about the area of effect attack that doesn't distinguish between friend or foe since the beginning of your journey. How do you feel about that trope in the context of a war like Marineford? Powerful characters stand around, seemingly waiting for their turn to be cool. But you can kind of understand why, when their attacks could wipe out their own forces. As a follow-up, is there any character you believe held back for personal reasons as opposed to narrative reasons, besides Garp?"
A character that held back for what reasons?
For personal reasons.
As opposed to what reasons?
As opposed to, like, for the story. Like, say someone, like...
Oh, like they weren't nerfed for the story, but they held back.
From themselves.
I mean, Whitebeard, clearly. Like, Whitebeard could, like, with the power of Whitebeard's fruit, he could have done, like, is there a reason why he can't do that 50,000 times and just suicide bomb Marineford? Is there a reason? Like, I mean, the reason is Ace is locked up and he will die with them because he has the sea prism on, so he can't, normally I imagine Whitebeard wouldn't have a problem going and bam, 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 and it's just like, just implode the entire place because Ace is fire and he'll just fly away. But
and then that honestly, like, it does come down to the area of effect attack that doesn't distinguish friend from foe, because it's like, if you could just distinguish, then it wouldn't be a problem. Just get everyone other than Ace, leave. But it is. I thought that comment was really.
It warms our hearts that we're not the only people kind of, okay, Mihawk, you could have sliced that ice block fucking 20 episodes ago, but you're just, okay, you're doing it now. All right. We saw you obliterate Don Krieg's fucking gigantic ship in one slash, Mihawk could have easily done that to all of Whitebeard's ships and there would have been no problem. Maybe a couple of them have powers that are strong enough to deflect it, but not all of them. Not all of the ships. He could have destroyed all the ships. Mihawk himself could have destroyed all the ships. Doflamingo, we don't know exactly how his power works. Whether there's like he seems to be some kind of like a puppet mastery type guy, but are there strings involved? Because he like cut off Orz's leg. Was that like with some invisible string, or was it did he just do a slicey hockey attack thing? I don't know. Anyway, they're so overwhelmingly powerful that like you have to kind of it's whatever, you have to kind of nerf them but that wasn't the question. The question was who else is like emotionally nerfing themselves. I mean, there's Garp, Whitebeard, Sengoku, I think, on some level. He doesn't want to cause the most destruction possible with his fruit. He probably could have done a lot more.
For Sengoku, if it is this, like, he doesn't want to kill all of the Marines at the same time, that makes a lot of sense if he has this overwhelmingly powerful fruit. But it's like all your guys are there too. You can't just kill all of them. I do think that, like, with Mihawk is a little bit interesting because I think that he could have maybe done more, but I think it's, I think that he is someone who personally maybe just didn't want to do more.
Yeah. I think maybe he's on this list too.
He's on this list, I think, because
you could reason it that way, yeah.
Especially with now that he's helping Zoro, like, and the fact that he remembered those guys that he saw mid-fight.
That was so funny that like Zoro's on a list of fucking people that he's like Hisoka'd of like just wrecks their shit, but only when you're strong enough. Yeah.
But I guess like I feel like for Mihawk for so long was just this guy who like fucking rolled up on his solo ship, like wrecked Zoro, was super badass, but like also
refused to elaborate and then leaves.
Yeah. But I feel like now we're getting a slight bit of elaboration. Like, he's still this guy that is like similar to Boa, but with less to lose, working with the government so that they can do what they want. Whereas Boa is working with the government to protect all of her people. Mihawk is working with the government just so that he can mind his own fucking business 90% of the time, He set up shop on a castle island, he's hanging out, he like trains with these monkeys that are, able to replicate things that they learn. I feel like he's cool. And I feel like we are getting a little bit more of his personality, and we might get more insight into that, based on if Zoro talks about him or if we like see him a bit more now that we know that Zoro is going to be spending 2 years hanging out with him. Yeah. There's kind of a joke question followed up by an actual question by the same person. Artemis asked, Artemis? Whose I don't know. Whose boobs do you think have gone through the most development, Nami or Robin? And do you have any expectations for their boob development in the future?
I mean, by all accounts, it seems to only get worse. Is that the right word for boobs getting bigger?
In this
their proportion
case,
getting more and more outlandish.
Yeah, and especially when we talked about with Chopper learning new techniques. They could be and Sanji learning food to enhance the body. Bodies.
Yes.
It can only get more extreme.
I think in terms of whose boobs had more development, it can only be Nami.
It can only be Nami because Robin was already
stacked from day one, and I don't think she's gotten more stacked. There was a while there where her outfits got a little bit got nerfed for sure. By which I mean they were just exploding all over the place and like just loose fabric flopping about.
It's not even just the size.
Tequila Wolf has never heard of an underwire in their fucking existence. In the 700 years they've been building that bridge, they never built a bra once, by the looks of it.
And then onto the actual question that is about Nami. Now that you're this far in the series, do you feel strongly and less concerned about Nami's growth and development, in brackets, not talking about her boobs, since East Blue, in terms of her physical prowess, intelligence, and contribution to the crew? And what expectations do you have for her in the future now that she's undergoing training? I feel like this is an interesting question because I wish and I hope that we see a little bit more of her as like competent navigator Nami. But with the size of the crew, and this is how I feel about everyone. I feel that way about Chopper. I want him to be competent Dr. Chopper. I want Sanji to be like really cooking up a storm. You know, I want everyone to be excelling in the things that they're good at. That's what I really like. But just with the amount of people at this point, I don't like. I hope more than anything that we get moments for them to shine. And I think that at the start of this new arc, as we're heading into the new world, I think that we're going to, because we've been without the crew for so long, I think that we're going to get each their own moments to be like really good. But as the story goes on, I don't know how much we'll see.
Yeah, there's only one way that things can progress with this size of a cast is either some people need to leave permanently or at least for a long time. You need to create reasons for the group to like split up and then focus on one or the other. So there's a smaller pool of people. Or the more likely option is that Nami specifically is, I don't know, but it's just inevitable with how we have 8 crew members. I honestly don't fucking know how many people we have right now. Luffy, Sanji, Zoro, Nami, Robin, Chopper, Brook, Frankie, 8 people.
Yeah, potentially. I'm hoping Jinbei.
Oh, that would be fun.
If we do sort of a classic like One Piece arc, we go to Fishman Island, we do something there, and then
But it's just I'll say it again. You can only read one word at a time, and you can the human brain, the human eyes can only read one word at one time. So you can only focus on one thing at one time, no matter how much shit you want to go on in your story. The bandwidth of a story, it narrows to a bottleneck to the point where you can't have this expansive, crazy tapestry. So, and just the nature, because it's just how it's a biological thing. It's like it's not just about world building and is the world big enough? Is the ship big enough? Is there enough tasks for people to do? Does everyone have enough skills or development or whatever? It all comes down to there's only so many words on a page and there's only so many panels in a chapter. And, there's only so many chapters that can be put out in a year. There's, 52 chapters. If you write a chapter a week, you do 52 chapters a year and that's it. So, it's a bandwidth thing. It's not just a time thing. It's a bandwidth thing. It comes down to the delivery method. So it's not really a problem with like Oda as a writer being able to give people development. It's that if you're not careful, the crew swells to a point where there literally is not enough space or time to give other characters their due once you get through their backstory. Without completely undoing what the actual plot at the time is. So, like, we could cut to Chopper doing something Chopperish or Nami being a crazy navigator. But, over the course of the next 700 episodes, with 8 people, potentially 9 or 10, I don't know how many other people are going to be added, in 700 episodes, you need to make time for, Luffy's the main character, we'll set him aside, 7 people, and then you have to factor in the plot as well. How many episodes are going to be able to be focused on each individual part of one of those people? Maybe 10 per character in 700 episodes? Like, when you do the arithmetic on it, that's what we're talking about. So, like, it's literally not a skill issue. The skill issue comes from not creating this problem for yourself in the first place by keeping your cast small to like 3 or 4 or 5 people. But if you just want to add people because it's fun, and I like all the characters, but it's like there's a limitation of the human body, literally. So all that said, I can try to be hopeful. But there's not really a way around it. There's not really a way like, are you hopeful Nami will get her thing? I mean, the fact that you're bringing up Nami to me says that there'll probably be a big Nami moment in the next like probably 100 episodes or so, just based on context. But like, I don't see it. I don't see the problem being fixed unless we split up the crew more.
And at least temporarily while we're in the New World, if we do get a kind of a thing like at the start of the Grand Line before we get to Alabasta, where it's a little bit more like not episodic, because like not episode by episode, but like
island by
island. If we do get a little bit of, and I hope we do, of just genuinely exploring freely islands that like, maybe certain things from them will come back later on. Maybe they won't. Maybe it'll just be a strange freak of nature island that has something on it. Like I would love to see all of them showing off their new skills that they learned from the time skip. And I would love to see, them being highlighted throughout the rest of the story from time to time. It's purely just, there's so many of them that it's not that I don't think that they will have any development. And I think Nami has had development, but it's just not the focus of everything. And that's part of what is good about One Piece, is that it's the crew. The crew all together is almost like a character, like one character. You know what I mean? It's like they're all in it together. They're all on the same boat. They all make up all together combined make up what is good about One Piece. But there's just a lot of them at this point. So it literally,
it's just a numbers. It's a space and time thing. It has nothing to do with like, is the story good enough to, be able to include everything. It's like, in order for a story to be engaging and interesting, you can't be focusing on 8 different people for every plot point, or give something for everyone to do. So I think that it's already been a pattern since forever, since the Grand Line. It's already been a pattern for over the course of the show. I think since we got Chopper, really. Or since Drum Kingdom was the first one where I really noticed it starting, where we just, okay, arc starts, we get an intro to where we are, and then everybody splits up, and then some people come back together, and somebody's either missing or something, and we try to find them, and then there's some kind of schism, and then there's kind of this floaty area where we don't really know what's going on, and there can be time to focus on different people here and there, and then we all meet back up, and there's a crazy clash. And then maybe we get separated again, and then we come back for the final thing. That's kind of been like the formula for the arcs. And I feel like we're gonna see more of that going forward. There's just no way around it. It's literally, there's just no way around it. I don't see any way around it. I hope that I'm missing some crucial piece here, that that maybe there is something I'm not thinking about. Maybe it's completely possible. I'm not a fucking genius or anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a couple questions about like, how different do you think that they'll be after the time skips? And we kind of talked about that. It's like, I think that we'll have a time of them showing off their new skills, but they're just going to be like a leveled up version of what they kind of were, Agree. So here is the next question, kind of related to that, from Chakaboshi, who asked, if you could choose, which of the Straw Hats training locations would you want to spend the 2 years at?
That's an interesting one. Definitely not Frankie's.
Yeah, definitely not Frankie's.
Usopp's could have its perks.
It has its perks because it's like he's with like someone that's like super fucking iconic and funny. And there's lots of food, but like...
I think just Nami's. That's the best one.
Nami's is good. If I had to pick 2... Chopper's, I think, is also really good.
Chopper's is okay.
Like, after he sorted everything out, it's like, there's these awesome birds that are super fun. There's these awesome people that, like, have a lot of knowledge.
I'd love to hang out in a wizard tower in the sky, fucking on a floating island learning about magic, basically. Yeah. That would be fucking crazy awesome. It's not really magic, but it's basically magic. It's weather magic. Mm-hmm. That's the best one. Is there a better one? We'll have to see. I guess Robin's going to Baltigo. Baltigo doesn't seem too bad, although you have to live in hiding from the fucking world government all the time. We don't really know
what her like day-to-day is going to be there, because she's the only one that is leaving the place that we saw her at to go somewhere else, It
might take a year for her to get there. We actually don't know how far it is. Is Baltigo in the New World, or is it in the Grand Line, or is it in the Conbelt? I actually can't remember. Or was it in one of the blues? I can't fucking remember.
I genuinely don't know.
I can't remember.
I can't remember. But either way, yeah, it's definitely like I feel like that's hers is unknown, but yeah, I think Nami and Chopper have the best deals. Chopper was having rough for a while, but
now that everybody's peaceful there, it seems like it's gonna be a great place to live. Mm-hmm. Are we missing anybody? Not Brooke.
Not
Not
Brooke.
Brooke.
And I don't think
Not enslaved.
Also, Frankie, his place is like not that great. Like I wouldn't want to go
in a frozen wasteland. Fucking.
No.
Yeah.
There'll be no.
It's not maybe.
It's not
Not the worst,
but it's not the best.
Yeah. He's got all the cola he can drink. It's so crazy. Why did he make he didn't make the cola. He found the cola.
He found the cola in
the lab.
In the lab.
Why does he have so much cola? He must just like cola. But it's a weird coincidence that our big cyborg guy
runs on cola.
Got run over by a train and then put himself back together. And he runs on cola. We go to the laboratory of the guy who turns people into devil fruit, or who makes objects, eats devil fruits. He made all these advancements. Who made the only other cyborgs that we've seen, and he just has a giant fridge full of only cola.
Yeah,
that's pretty suspicious. I'm just thinking about it right now. But what if Frankie got like picked up by Vegapunk? That would be pretty crazy. That would be pretty crazy. It was maybe he went there to like look at the plans from Tom. Got there just after Frankie got run over by the train and Tom died. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I could see that. That would make a lot of sense with how advanced Frankie is.
Yeah, I do.
Maybe Frankie doesn't remember it.
Yeah, could be, or it could just be a way of showing like maybe Frankie
they think alike.
They have similar thought process.
Yeah,
which is also good.
Good old Cutty Flam.
Mm-hmm. Jeremy asked, what do you think that Buggy will be up to during the time skip? I think Buggy's gonna be a warlord.
You know what Buggy's gonna be up to? He's gonna be a fucking emperor. Are you kidding me?
Well, I thought that it was implied that he was gonna get
Buggy.
the offered to be a
Oh
warlord.
no, right. That was it. Yeah, right. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I wonder if he's gonna take it.
I feel like
I feel like he might be like, oh, I really want to take it. That'd be a super good gig. But then he's like, but what if another war happens? I get called to that. Or what if I get, like, what am I gonna do? Like if somebody challenges me or something. What was I gonna say? What was I actually gonna say? Oh, what he's gonna be doing in the meantime? He got the little armband from Luffy.
Right.
But he's gonna get there and realize that it's gone. It's gone. It was on Thriller Bark. That's where Luffy got the thing with all of the treasure that Moria had, is because all these pirates from all over the world get sucked into the Florian Triangle, and then and then that's where Luffy found the thing, and then he's like, oh, what? That's from, what was it, Captain John Bart? What the fuck was it? Or is that the guy that's on Law's crew? I can't remember.
John, maybe. Yeah, I don't remember.
Anyway, and there was a zombie in Thriller Bark that had the same name. That was one of the general zombies. I mean, it's case closed. Buggy is gonna find his way back to Thriller Bark on this journey.
I would love to see Buggy in Thriller Bark.
But it's not gonna be what it was. It's just gonna be an empty island at this point.
That's true.
Unless there's that giant. Remember that giant shadow at the end of Thriller Bark with the red eyes?
Oh yeah.
Maybe he'll go there and that's gonna be there. That's what he's gonna do. He's gonna realize that his entire life's work is over and that it was already completed.
And then he'll be a warlord. Because he has a bunch of people that are hyping him up all over the place.
And then he'll be an emperor. Mm-hmm. And then he'll be God of the Pirates, Captain Buggy.
Elite Captain Buggy.
Alrighty, so we just took a break to look at the questions again real quick. And it strikes us that, like, no one at all asked about Sabo and Ace or, like...
any of the flashback
of that part of it. Maybe it's because I didn't dictate it properly in the thing, but I said up to 516 in the title. I didn't say post-Marineford, but... yeah, maybe that's it. But yeah, we didn't get any questions for Sabo at all, or for Ace and his personality at all. Maybe they felt satisfied by our discussions, and because maybe that's it. Maybe those episodes were more popular, so then more people heard what we had to say about it in those discussions, because we had pretty good discussions around that. If you want to see us talking more in detail, we kind of did already in those episodes.
I guess in Marineford, we purposefully did not have a discussion a lot of the time just to see what happened next.
Yeah.
Whereas in the flashback arc, we talked a little bit more about, Ace and how his character motivations, were like they were already kind of confirmed with a few previous flashbacks about him reacting to people dissing Roger. So that, made sense why he went back to, when Whitebeard was getting insulted by Akainu. And, it explored that a little bit more in the flashback. It also explored more, Luffy dealing with the loss of someone else and why it was so important for him for Ace to live, But I guess we did talk about that more, and maybe that's just not as intriguing or exciting to people, maybe.
Yeah, I guess I don't really have a lot more to say about it other than the episode, but I just wanted to point that out, that we got like 166 comments or something like that, and all of them are pretty much about Haki and what we think of Haki and what we think of the Will of D and like grand, huge story things. But I don't know if we have a lot more to say about that type of thing. Like, it just feels weird that this podcast is going to be shorter than like most of our other podcasts, or at least around the same length when everyone was anticipating it being crazy longer. But there's a couple more things that we wanted to talk about.
I feel like part of that is just like there's so much. Like, I feel like when there's less, we tend to yap about it more because it's like it just happened. It was, there's a lot to go into, but this is like so much happened from like the episode that we're starting this podcast about till now, that it's just like, like there's a lot, and then there's like more standout moments. But we did have a couple questions about Blackbeard. So Bootyman555 asked, I have to know what you guys think about Blackbeard. What are his plans? Where is he going? What's he doing? What are your thoughts on his grand plan overall? How do you feel about his character? To clarify his grand plan, I'm talking about his Impel Down prison break and appearance at Marineford. I feel like, we kind of touched on Blackbeard a little bit already, but it's just like, I feel like as a villain of the story, as another pirate villain, because like, obviously a lot of the Marines are kind of like, they're against us and they're really powerful. But I feel like Blackbeard is just such like a, he's similar to Luffy in so many ways. He's similar to Roger in so many ways, but he has like this mean, like he has like this like, you know what I mean? Like he's evil, but like entertaining and like dramatic. He has a flair for the dramatic, and you talk about this a lot, and I love it. I love that he doesn't succeed every time, or he doesn't know that he's going to succeed every time. He doesn't only act when he knows exactly what the outcome's going to be. He's willing to take a chance. He's willing to take a risk for a good reward. And I feel like that is intriguing, because I feel like in so many shows it's just like every villain is the Akainu is really good within the show, but it's like if everyone is Akainu, if everyone is just, oh, they're so powerful and they succeed every time and their plan works out and they only act when they know it will work. If every person is like that, then that's boring. It's cool in Akainu because he's like the guy that's like that. But Blackbeard is really cool because he's not like that. He, as far as we know, he didn't know that it would work. Like, he didn't know all his plans would work, but he has like this like mentality of kind of going with the flow but seizing opportunities. I feel like he's very interesting.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I don't want to spoil Jujutsu Kaisen. I kind of maybe alluded to a little bit of a spoiler when shit was going on with Blackbeard. But if you've seen Jujutsu Kaisen, you probably know the comparison and the character that I'm comparing him to. I'll try to talk around it as much as possible. But with that character, the only way to really follow this, I guess what I'm saying is if the comparison is if you've seen it. But how should I even approach this without spoiling Jujutsu? There's a character similar to Blackbeard in Jujutsu Kaisen. The difference is they're pulling off their shit in Jujutsu Kaisen. Yeah, this isn't really a spoiler. It seems like, because I don't really actually know, it seems like they're pulling off their shit in Jujutsu Kaisen, the sort of analog to Blackbeard, because they're trying to get to like the bottom of like the magic system in that world. They're trying to find like the ultimate truth and the ultimate level of either power or understanding of the world, because like their power system is like life itself, basically. They're like all life is like cursed energy or some shit. Like they're trying to figure out like the truth, basically. They're trying to get to the truth is their thing. And they're pulling off insane shit in order to do it. But Blackbeard doesn't seem like he is interested in finding the One Piece necessary. Maybe he is, but he doesn't seem like he's necessarily as interested in like finding out the world's secrets, like the Will of D and all this kind of stuff. So when we're talking about like Blackbeard's plans, I honestly don't 100% even know if he has crazy plans. Like it seems like Blackbeard is like a free agent. He just wants to follow the most interesting thing at all times and be able to do that. And I think that's all he really cares about.
He values freedom, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like he you know, is on a similar trajectory as Luffy, but he's just kind of going for it, and he wants to reach whatever heights he can reach.
But I don't think he wants to find out
him.
like the nature of the Will of D. I don't think he actually cares about that. If he does, it's just a means to an end of like wanting to feel more free. Like I think that's like it's hard to even call it an ultimate goal. It's more of an ultimate aim. It's not about like reaching something or fulfilling something. It's about moving forward with a direction that you choose. It's like he's on the cruise. That's all. But his cruise is completely. He wants to be completely uninhibited from anything. But like, I don't think that he wants to like become the fifth emperor or like the one emperor. I don't think he wants to be king of the pirates, for example. Do you think?
It's hard to say because he's so ambiguous, and he's so and like. You know, just the people that he picks on his crew, he just picks these, like, horrible people out of the depths of the jail that no one wants remembered because they're so fucking terrible. And he goes in there and he's like, hey, be my crew. And they're
be my crew.
But it's just like, so it's like all the, you know, it's like all the things he's doing. Yeah, I can't. Like, I want to be able to pin him down, but I can't, and I think that that's part of the point.
I think that's like, the point of him.
He's
the Joker.
You can't narrow him down to one specific goal other than like he wants to be free, but that in itself is the freedom to do anything.
Yeah.
Which means that he still can't be narrowed down to one thing because he's doing whatever, you know, he goes into the new world, he fucking kidnaps Bonnie right away and is like, oh, you know, like you know, it's just like what are you doing? And then he takes I don't know.
He'd be interested like the Blackbeard and Luffy's sort of shadow dynamic. There is, I feel like it would be super. It's too in depth to do this right now because it would probably take like I don't know, maybe an hour just to do the comparison. But like compare like the idea of the shadow. As the jester archetypes sort of in shonen, you know, like there's who would be, I guess who would be in Dragon Ball? It would be probably Frieza or Vegeta or Piccolo, depending on the type of the story. But like the difference in the sort of reverse nature in the same way that Luffy and Blackbeard are kind of like a reverse nature of each other. It's like in something like Dragon Ball, the aim of Goku is to not even to be the strongest. He doesn't actually want to be the strongest. He wants to overcome the greatest odds. He wants to fight. That's what he wants. So like his aim there is reflected in the people that he's fighting and to like overcome the greatest odds. So that's what's being reflected in like this mirror image type thing. In One Piece, it's freedom, and we see the reverse of that. And it's honestly a lot more interesting than like what's going on in Dragon Ball. And then in Naruto, what would it be? It'd be honestly, you could say Sasuke, which sure, but I feel like a better comparison would be like Kabuto to like what Naruto wants, and like especially early on in Naruto, like the type of figure that they're kind of emulating there. Either Orochimaru or Kabuto would be a better fit for Blackbeard. And like what their sort of place in the story. It's just a really interesting thing to think about. Like, and that's where my mind always goes. It's not, and I know it's not as satisfying to hear somebody talk about all of that in terms of like a getting super into the story type thing. But I guess that's what the reaction for. That's what this discussions is for. That's the difference between them, I guess. I'm really intrigued with Blackbeard, but I'm not just intrigued with how he'll like affect Luffy, my friend Luffy, the emotional, connection I have to this guy that's like my buddy, like I'm thinking of it like that, and I'm trying to watch more with that kind of a mindset. But I'm really interested to see what Oda does with this type of person, with how he set up the world and the aims of his main character and how that's reflected in this archetype. Because it's all archetypes. It's all the same people slotted into the same spots or slightly different variations of the same spot that all have a relationship to either the main character or the arc that the main character is on, and they play a part in this like theater play that's going on, this epic that's happening. So that's I'm really interested. I'm always interested to see what authors do with those archetypes, because that's where the difference in storytelling can happen, and that's where things feel unique. So like the themes of One Piece make it unique to itself, but themes and characters and like who they are don't that's not a story. A story is things happening. So and things happening isn't necessarily unique because it's all the same archetypes and similar stories playing out. It's how all of these things kind of mush together that I'm excited for. I want to see how Oda uses all of these things with, like, because Blackbeard and Luffy's future is looking really interesting, and I pray that it's not the most basic shonen-y shit. Like I want there to be something a little bit more interesting, kind of. Even if it's just underneath the surface, it doesn't need to be super deep or anything, but like I feel like there's an opportunity to really pull a very unique interaction there from them, and with the focus of One Piece being freedom, like how I don't know. I'm very interested in that. Very interested in that. It's difficult to kind of put into words or put a satisfying button on at the end, but I'm just very interested in all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. And Monkey D. Lucci asked, Oda gets some criticism for retconning, i.e. fake out deaths or power scaling.
We did this one.
No, we were going to do this one, but then I realized it was the wrong question.
Oh, okay. Jesus Christ.
But how do you feel about Oda breaking his story rule of a person cannot have 2 devil fruit abilities and then giving that rule-breaking ability to Blackbeard?
Well, I think the objection a lot of people would have, and I imagine they're like already typing it in the comments, is that it's not technically a rule break because in Jaya, when we first met Blackbeard, there was the thing about, they or them, not he, and they as in plural. So there's multiple people in there, and his flag has 3 skulls. Therefore, he's probably 3 people. He probably ate his other triplets in the womb or some shit, and that gives him like some crazy power to eat more devil fruits. I think that's probably what it's going to be. That's especially because we brought up and it was like kind of a how do we make the timeline work thing, but with Rouge and Ace's birth and it being like off the timeline because maybe Oda fucked up, or maybe he went back and realized he didn't want, or he wanted Ace to be Roger's kid, and maybe that wasn't his original plan. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. Anyway, that's not the point of this question. I think giving him that ability is the only thing you could do. Why would you give that to an ally so that an ally could be a worse threat? That's boring as shit. You got to give it to the fucking psycho. That's way cooler.
I also feel like Blackbeard is the perfect if you're going to have someone and their whole thing is freedom, the rules don't apply to them. They do whatever they want.
Exactly.
So there's one rule. We've known him, there's no rules. Fucking objects can eat a devil fruit. Anything can eat a devil fruit, this and that. There's one rule. You cannot eat more than 1 devil fruit or you will explode
yeah.
or some shit. okay, there's a guy that believes that the rules do not apply to him.
Yes.
What is he going to do? And, there's something with the physical makeup of his body. There's something, it's been kind of alluded to. We don't know exactly what it is. But even he didn't know if he would be able to pull this off.
Yeah.
It is very clear that him and his crew were like, we're like hoping that this will work, but he might also die. And that's a chance we're willing to take, And it did work. And now he has 2 devil fruits. But no one else would do that, even if they thought that maybe they could, because they would be too scared, because they wouldn't be willing to take that risk. They wouldn't be willing to assume that rule wouldn't apply to them, you know? And I feel like I really like it, because I feel like it adds to the vibe of Blackbeard. It adds to his character. It adds to the role that he fills in the story of this, total freedom, the freedom to eat multiple devil fruits, which is something that no one else can do. I feel like, you could give it to a different type of villain, and I don't think it would be as effective. You could give Akainu a second devil fruit. I think that it would just come across as like, okay,
Yeah, it wouldn't work if there wasn't that. I think you're actually 100% right. It wouldn't work if it was somebody else. Not just because it wouldn't be badass, I guess, but it's only badass because it fits thematically with his character. Like the fact, the whole
like
rules
the
not applying.
Yeah. Mad scientist. He's not a mad scientist, but he fits that archetype of a villain kind of vibe. So I feel like that is what makes me like it. That's what makes me feel like, this character from the outset was created for things like this.
Yeah.
If anyone's going to do this, it's going to be him. And I like that it's him. And I like that it happened. And I don't feel, like I could see if he did it to someone else, or like in a different show, it could be really seen as like, okay, you just decided that could happen because you wanted him to be cool. I don't get that vibe. I get it's like intentional. It adds to his character.
Yeah.
And I really like it.
Yeah. Blackbeard's a lot. And honestly, here's a thought that about Blackbeard. I was not half as, like, I was already interested in him. I was not half as interested in him as I am now that he has both 2 of the strongest devil fruits that we've seen so far. He has a devil fruit that can nullify all other devil fruits, and he has a devil fruit that can just fucking destroy the planet if he wants, like if he's powerful enough. I don't know what the limitations of that fruit are, but there must be some, because Whitebeard really held back. God damn it. Anyway. I was already interested in him before, but it wasn't half as much as I am seeing he's at, like, he reached a plateau of power that puts him at like he could be above Mihawk, maybe he could be around Mihawk's level or above him, or like he could be approaching Shanks' level.
Once he,
we don't know how powerful Shanks is. Everyone's gonna freak out like, how the fuck? What do you? This fucker saying that Shanks is so much cooler than fuck. I don't fucking care. Shut up.
And that's the thing. It's like his power potential grows so much more, because as we know, it's like you can refine your devil fruit and utilize it better. So if you have 2 of those, plus if he learns Haki, plus if, you know what I mean? Like, his options are so much more. And that also fits into him, being a good opposition for Luffy, because Luffy's whole thing is like, he's like, he bounces back. He's flexible, this and that. It's like Blackbeard is flexible, but in a different way. He just gives himself more things to work with rather than being like a bendable person, Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to underscore one more time, because I made a couple Jujutsu comparisons. There's a few characters that, like, Blackbeard is at some points Sukuna, at some points Mahito, and at some points Geto. And it's like, but none of those guys have what makes Blackbeard himself, which is that, like, oh shit, oh god, I'm about to get fucked up, like that face. That, like, none of them, for example, they all have like a piece of that, like the arrogance of Mahito and the sort of like being above it all of Sukuna, of like, the rules don't apply to me, I'm not a sorcerer, I'm not a cursed spirit, I'm something different, I don't put myself in those boxes. And then the like mastermind thing of going on with Geto. It's like they all, like, Blackbeard, you could compare them to all of them, but none of them have, like, that piece is what makes Blackbeard, like when I was talking about like the uniqueness and like what makes, if you're playing out a series of archetypes, what make there's very limited deviations from the archetypes without destroying the story and just making it dumb and not feel like it's flowing properly. Like it's a delicate balance. But in those little deviations, there's room to make something unique, and that's, to me, is where Blackbeard really shines, is like that he can be the mastermind and still be like flying by the seat of his pants and still be overwhelmingly intimidating and powerful and be like a reflection of the main character. Like, yeah, Blackbeard is, I'm so much more hyped up for where his story is going, for sure. Very exciting.
Yeah, very good. And then I have one final sort of general question just to kind of end off this podcast. It's from Beanie, who said that they're really excited for the podcast, and they asked if what our top 3 favorite Straw Hats, top 3 favorite side characters, and top 3 favorite arcs. I thought this would be good kind of to tack on at the end as just a little update on our thoughts, at this point in the story.
For me, top 3 Straw Hats. The ones I feel most connected to: Luffy, Zoro, Sanji. I would put either Robin or Chopper in there, but they feel like they're a little bit more background at this point. Yeah, I'd say those. Earlier in the series, I would have said Nami is one of the top 3, but she hasn't got a lot of play recently. Top 3 side characters for me: Kobe, Jinbei. If we're including Blackbeard, I'll say Blackbeard. I'm forgetting somebody. There's too many. I'm forgetting somebody. There's somebody that they're gonna be like, what about this fucking guy? Bon Clay. I'm more excited about if we don't include villains, then I'll do Bon Clay. Okay. Which is crazy because of how much I didn't give a fuck about him in Alabasta.
You were actively like, get this guy out of here.
Yeah, it felt very forced. Like, why are you trying to make me, like, are you just forgetting what this guy did? Is there no examination of like what he's actually done? We're just supposed to like him because he's funny? Fuck off. But he's actually done things now that are, I don't know, it doesn't erase what he did, but it definitely makes him more of an actual character rather than just like a gag that we're supposed to like because he sacrificed himself. And then top 3 arcs: Thriller Bark, G8, and Marineford. If we're not including G8, honestly, G8 was really good, but it has my favorite episode still, I think, because that fucking episode was so good. So I won't include G8. That's not fair. And then probably Thriller Bark, Marineford, not Sabaudi. It was really cool, but it wasn't. I wouldn't say it's my favorite. Maybe it's Rose Tinted Glasses, but I find myself looking more and more nostalgically at Alabasta as we go on. I don't know about you. Maybe it's because I miss Vivi and Karoo.
Vivi and Karoo was so good. I think
I had a lot of problems with that fucking arc, but
but as you get far away from it, you don't remember the problems. You remember the good stuff.
I remember a lot of the problems, but they
just seem less.
They seem less important as when we're looking back.
Mm-hmm.
Thriller Bark, Marineford, and then maybe Alabasta or. I honestly wasn't that crazy about Water 7. I wasn't that crazy about it. Like, I feel like people are, what? Enies Lobby, Water 7 weren't in your top 3? Like that, like they're probably my top 5 so far for sure. But I liked Thriller Bark more than them. And I know that's a hot take, but it's just how I feel. I don't know about you. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe Alabasta.
I feel like for me, top 3 Straw Hats have got to be. Did you include Luffy in your? Yeah. Luffy. I would say Nami and Sanji. I also really like Zoro, and I say Nami as well because, like, I feel like even like I was thinking like, oh, maybe not Nami, and then I thought about her reaction when she gets the message from Luffy, and I was like very, very genuinely like you know what I mean? Like I felt like I could really connect with her character in that moment of just like when she's remembering all that Luffy did for her with Arlong, and how and she's just getting super emotional in that moment. I'm just like, and like when I envision all that Nami could be, like I feel like she's top. And I feel like Sanji, it's like he somehow can be like the worst character and also the best character at the same. Like he is the best when he's not being the worst, But I do feel like he can be used for a lot of gags.
I just realized when we were listing off all the fucking Straw Hats, we forgot about Usopp. I cannot believe that. There's already going to be comments about that. When we were like, okay, who do we got? Luffy, fucking... And we didn't mention Usopp. Wow. Anyway, Usopp... At this point, I like Usopp more than Sanji. I can't believe I forgot about Usopp. It's because... You know why? It's because I think about Soga King.
When you're thinking about those arcs?
It's like... You know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? Like,
I kind of know what you mean.
And then he was fat, so he didn't look like he was fat for like the last 100 episodes. So I haven't been thinking about him as him because he's just been like a weird version of him that's also not animated right. Like in his little thing, it's like he doesn't look like himself, he doesn't sound like himself, and so that's why. But yeah, no, my top 3 are Luffy, Zoro, and Usopp for sure.
I think because it's hard to even because I feel like Luffy should almost like not be included, because I think that like if Luffy was not included, then it would be Nami, Sanji, and Usopp would be my like top 3 excluding Luffy.
I feel like yeah,
because
sure.
I really like Usopp is similar to Sanji, where sometimes his jokes can get repetitive. But also, he's had more growth than any of them, the whole, since we're talking about Water 7, like everything that went down with Luffy and him leaving and then coming, like, all of that. And then, like, I feel like he is a really, really great character, but we also sometimes don't see a lot from him on a day-to-day basis. And we, had a whole arc where he was pretending not to be himself, but it was still super emotional and, And then, we haven't seen him in a while, but I feel like a lot of the newer ones, like originally I really liked Chopper, but I feel like he, the most out of any of the Straw Hats,
has been sidelined
to just be like a pet almost. And I feel bad. Like I literally have a Chopper hat. I love Chopper, but I love Chopper when he isn't just being like, not really doing anything. I like Chopper when he's able to be a doctor. I like Chopper when he's being sensitive, but not just so that they can tug at our heartstrings for no reason, basically. Like, I like a lot about him. I like a lot about Robin. I like, I like the newer ones, but just something about all
like Frankie and Brooke, you mean?
Yeah, but just something about all of the original Straw Hats is just so,
yeah.
They just
I feel like I wish that we got just like one more. It would have cut the tension too much, but I would have liked one more arc after we got Brooke before Sabouti.
Yeah, I feel like
even
I'm not
just
really
a short
that
one,
attached to Brooke.
maybe not like something as dumb as Foxy, like something a little bit more than that, not something much longer than that, but like a good. I feel like I could have done with a good 10-15 episodes of like seeing the new crew dynamic in full. We kind of got that with the slave drivers people, the fucking the human traffickers.
Yeah, the flying fish guys.
Yeah, whatever they were. I forget their name. I forget what was his name? I can't remember. Duval. Yeah, Duval and all those guys. We kind of got that with that, but they're, you know what I mean? I feel like I didn't get enough time with our crew in that little pocket. I feel like I could have done with a little bit more there, but the overall tension building of this part of the story was pretty top tier. Yeah. So it's exactly what I was saying. It's exactly my whole fucking thing about like the limitations of storytelling.
Yeah, but I would say excluding Luffy because I feel like he can't count because he's obviously going to be there. I think Nami, Sanji, and Usopp top 3.
Excluding Luffy, definitely. I feel like I'm really connected to Zoro.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I like Zoro, but I
feel like
I don't feel as much of a connection to him as you do.
With Zoro, I feel like I can see the edgelord, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's that kind of tendency with him. But there's actually good character with him, and he's been with Luffy the longest. When he and Luffy are squatting up for something, it's like always hype, and it's always not just hype. There's always like an actual camaraderie there. And like a brotherhood that I feel like he doesn't have with the rest of the crew. And so that's part of it, is that when Zoro and Luffy are shoulder to shoulder, the story is gonna be a fucking cinema. It's gonna be epic and incredible. The Zoro versus Sanji stuff's usually pretty funny. Sometimes it can get boring, but Sanji also, I hope that he still retains like his personality after this design change, because like the design change, it seems like it should be a small thing, but it makes me look at him completely different. Like I feel like he's too similar looking to Zoro now, and they're trying to make it like him more cool. Everybody's got a big neck, you know, and like his hair's a little bit more spiky and crazy rather than like doo-doo-doo, like that type of thing. Like he was supposed to be like Zoro's supposed to be all sharp and like. And then he was supposed to be like all curvy and like the spiral lines of his eyebrows and like his long kind of like hair and stuff like that. And he's like more thin, where Zoro's more like buff a little bit. You know, like, and now that Sanji is more of like, he's got the Diable Jambe, and we'll have to see when everybody gets back together. But I would like to wait on a design change. If you're gonna give him a design change, wait till after the thing, the training arc. You know, because it seemed like he got way stronger looking since he's been there, which I guess makes sense, but it would have been a bigger shock. I mean, maybe it'll change again, but anyway, I guess my point is I'm feeling less attached to Sanji the further we go, in a similar way that I was talking about like with Nami.
Yeah.
So, I think maybe I'd switch out Sanji for Nami. So, or it would be Zoro, Usopp, and Nami would probably be my top three without Luffy.
It's such a hard question, because it's like I also feel like a lot of my attachment to Sanji honestly comes from filler, because he just has the best fucking like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So yeah, it's hard. This is actually a very hard question.
There is like a power gap though, because like and we still don't. I want more Brook. I want more Brook. I want to be more attached to Brook.
I feel like
I really liked him.
Like I
even in Thriller Bark. Even in Thriller Bark, I feel like there was a certain point where he became less integral to the
the
conflict there.
Like I still feel so connected to Vivi.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen her in hundreds of episodes. We just met Brook. Brook has been with us for a decent amount of time. We like went through a lot of stuff
150 episodes.
Like, you know, if he said
the story's
that
just
he's
been
not
moving
going
so
to be
fast
on the crew, I would be like, all right,
too bad.
Nice knowing you.
Let's go back to get Vivi. I hate saying that, because I actually really like Brook. I like the opportunity that he brings to the group. And Frankie, like Frankie, I want more with Frankie, and it's also. We need to remember, it's been so long. Like they said, it was like 3 real life years that this was separate, that they were all separated. We need to get back with the crew. And honestly, we just watched movie 6, which you can find on Patreon for $2. And that was like such a, like, to watch that right now was such a refresher to the whole group dynamic. And the whole point of that movie is that there's like they're like fighting all the time, because like the nature of the sort of the themes of the island that they're on, and the enemy that they're fighting. But it was so refreshing to see, like, you know, the way that Nami acts with Luffy, the way that like, and Usopp, and like Zoro and Sanji. Robin still has like her kind of, she's like off to the side. She doesn't really trust everybody quite yet. Like, everybody kind of had their own place in it, and it felt so refreshing to just see that dynamic for like the first half of that movie, after being away from everybody for so long. So like all this stuff of, I feel less attached to Sanji. I don't feel very attached to Brook. I don't feel as attached to Frankie as like when Water 7 was there, or when we were at Water 7. I think what we really need is just to watch more One Piece.
I think that's the real thing. And I will very quickly, before we end this off, answer the other 2 parts of that question,
Go
which
ahead.
is 3 side characters. really like Jinbei, really like Bonclay and Buggy, but I would think might put Kobe above Jinbei, even though Jinbei was like the goat of this arc.
He was like supposed to be the goat.
He was so good, but like I'm so interested to see where Kobe goes. Like Jinbei is already really good. Maybe he'll get better if we see him more in Fishman Island. Kobe, like I can just tell, like the you know,
he's got a lot of room to grow.
He's got a lot of room to grow. He's already grown so much. I get every time I see Kobe, I'm so excited, you know?
Yeah.
And then my top three arcs would be Marineford, Thriller Bark, and I think Water 7. But mostly like the first half, like Water 7 itself. Not related to Enies Lobby. Like that's not one of my favorites. But I think those would be my top three.
Yeah. Kind of want to. Yeah, maybe I put. Yeah, I probably put Water like with the whole Usopp versus Luffy stuff.
All Usopp versus Luffy, all of the mystery of CP9, like
the reveal of CP9. I feel like maybe I'm understating like how much.
Like if you think about like when I think about Enies Lobby, that is like quite low down, to be completely honest. If I like put every single arc. But Water 7 was really good, and I really like, and that was like some of the feelings that I was having during Water 7 were like the first time being that invested in the show.
Maybe we need to get a little bit further in, or maybe this would be a good like short video to do
a full like tier
like
list.
A tier list for each of us of where we put each arc pre-time skip.
Mm-hmm. I think that could be good.
I think that'd be a good idea for a video. Leave a like and comment if you want to see that. Mm-hmm. Comment if you want to see a tier list of One Piece arcs pre-time skip. Mm-hmm. Before we move forward, we can maybe do that pretty quick.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Other than that, yeah. Sorry, I thought we both thought this podcast was gonna be like way longer, but I feel like part of it is that we just had such good discussions throughout. Like we kept discussions pretty short for a lot of the arc, but it wasn't because we didn't have anything to say. It's just that like we were saving it for the discussion.
And things were moving quickly, and
then we ended up like every few episodes having like a decently sized discussion.
Yeah,
you know,
I
don't know. It just worked out this way, and I don't feel like it's bad that it's shorter than we were expecting. But you know, because I feel like I'm comfortable with the amount that we said. Hopefully, we didn't miss anything.
Yeah, I think we got most things, and I'm happy with it, and I'm really excited to move forward with the story.
Me too.
I feel like, especially even after talking about it, I feel like I'm more excited.
100%. And we kind of started off the discussion with that, but just to leave it off as well. We have this like apprehension with One Piece and like getting our expectations up, because like you can get with any show, but with One Piece sometimes it's like you just want to let it happen. You don't want like One Piece. I find isn't the type of show that you want to like put a bunch of shit on it all the time, unless it's like theories and lore and stuff. But like it's such a good experience to just like let everything flow to you and just be excited for that experience, because that's the mindset that I've been trying to take. And it's paid off big time. I feel so much more invested, and it's because of that mindset. I don't feel like we have the same kind of like, is the Grand Line gonna be crazy, or is it just gonna be a bunch of business as usual, just like exploration, kind of going to city kind of thing. This one, I feel like even if there is some of that, I'm excited. And I feel like it's going to be another level. It's gonna feel different than the rest of the story so far.
Just the fact that the show itself already feels like it's on another level.
Yeah.
I feel like, and just the decision to take that time skip, like he didn't have to do that. So far there's been like no training arcs really in One Piece. Yeah. He could have just said, and then they became stronger because they believed in themselves, or they knew they had to be stronger. Well, that's literally
what happened with Enies Lobby. Yeah. Like, Nami gets the ultimate climb attacked, and like Usopp gets the fucking giant slingshot thing, and
But I guess what I'm saying is, making that you don't make that decision and say you're gonna have a time skip and meet back in 2 years if you don't have plans for exactly what you're going to do on the other end of those 2 years, because he didn't take 2 years off writing it, you know?
Exactly.
So,
well, maybe at a break. I don't know.
I don't know, but I doubt that it was like a...
Probably not 2 years.
Probably not 2 years. So I guess what I'm thinking of is if he's ramping up and then he's like, okay, I'm already ramping up. Now I'm going to give more of an opportunity to go even further and to, you know, really get into it. So I'm just excited.
We're both very excited. We're both very extremely excited. We hope you guys are excited for everything that's to come. Stay tuned for more videos. Check out Patreon to get ahead right now if you just can't wait. If you just got to the end of the podcast and you're like, oh my God, I want more, then check out Patreon. And we hope you enjoyed.
Yeah.
See you next one. I'm Carson.
I'm Lindsay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.